wrestling organ. Oh, there it is. There it was. There it was.
All right, the music was loud. I couldn't hear. It sounded like you were singing along. Hello again, friends. And you are our friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Wrestling and Music Spectacular, Jim Cornette's Drive Thru, right here for another action-packed week of action-packed wrestling talk. We've got action, and we're packed with it.
We're packed. Oh, we're impacted.
I'm your host, the great Brian Last, and here he is, the man who makes the impact, the leader of the cult of Cornette, Mr. Jim Cornette.
I'm fanning myself here, Brian, just 1 second, trying to get some fresh air after that. You know, I haven't had the most pleasant of weeks. I was a little cranky. I was a little on the cranky side. Not my normal, pleasant, easy-going, fun and fancy-free kind of self. I was a little on the cranky side on the experience. I'm trying to get cranked out of that today here on a drive-thru. Do you hear the sound over my shoulder, Brian?
A little bit.
I got one for once. My yard mowing fellows came early this morning so as not to disrupt this program that we do in front of an ever-increasing amount of people each and every week, and got out of here to skedaddled and scram. And guess who showed up about 10 minutes before we're scheduled to go on the air? Our old friend Landon, who still does the guy next door to me. I think he's some kind of illegitimate family relation, possibly from my neighbor and a squirrel. And so now he's roaring his machinery and blowing his fucking, as Troy Graham, a Dream Machine, said, blowing your whiskey-smelling breath and shaking your nicotine-stained fingers at me. He's blowing all his machinery right over here on this wing of the castle. So don't say a word to me about what's that noise. Just ignore it. Because I ain't in the mood to be trifled with. I'm still cranky at various things and people and entities and sorts. So don't be frivolous with me. I will brook none of your foolishness today, sir.
That's good to know. And at least Landon's there for support. But, you know, we're going to have a fun show.
I would like to take in. And here's another thing. It's not even April yet. And we're already all fools. Everything is budding. The dogwood is starting to bloom weeks ahead of schedule. We just had a freeze last week. The red buds are in full color, except my one over here on the side, I think, may have been freeze bit the other day. But this is way early. It's like record hot temperatures here around the Ohio Valley. And with it has come the pollen. So now Michigan J. Frog is in my throat. So just don't worry about it there then.
And this is the happy talk, folks. This is the happy talk portion of the show.
You know, there's one fucking sorry sack of shit that's happy in the world today. We heard from him. No, I'm using that. Well, see, that's kind of American, because the word that he uses in this email that he sent to us, because, you know, the folks in the United Kingdom across the pond, they use that C word just frivolously, but it's frowned upon in this environment over here. So I can't call him that as a term of endearment. So our Southern term of endearment is, well, you sorry sack of shit, you know, in a loving way. We heard from Grado is what we did. Because, Brian, we just, on the last program, I think, or whatever, talked about Grado told a story on somebody's podcast that he was on. He sent me a link to it. I haven't had a chance to watch it in person yet. But on the show that he was doing, he told the story about when TNA sent him an actual drawing of a check. Somebody drew a picture of a check on a piece of paper from TNA and sent it to him as a paycheck.
Hey, after you hear about that, don't you just want to do it? Don't you just want to draw
Well,
a check and send it to someone to try it out?
Again, we've already gotten some feedback that well, I was going to go into more of this on the experience because we've gotten some feedback on the idea of checks in general, and I think I have an email on that I'll find for the experience. But that folks like in Scotland, maybe the United Kingdom, there's people that haven't seen a check in 30 years, and there's also people, as I was about to mention, that have said actually you can legally still, in the old days, remember I said you could do that here, draw this on my bank. You can still technically legally do that in many places if all the information on your handwritten document is correct and it's presented to your bank where they know these things. But nevertheless, a lot of people don't fucking see checks over there anymore, how do they pay their bills? I mean,
deposit.
But no, that's a direct deposit where they send you your money and it's directly deposited in your bank account. And there's been a few people try to do that to me. And I never liked it because I want to see the goddamn document in my hand. But to pay the goddamn electric company?
Yeah, then they just pull it out of your account, direct deposit.
Well, fuck them. I don't have anybody just pull anything out of my account. While they're in there, they may start shopping. Something may stick to the fucking hand as they draw it back. I pay all of my bills by check and have for the past 50 fucking years. But nevertheless, back to the original thing that more on the experience on this gripping topic. But Grado wrote in, and I will excerpt a few things because he heard our reaction to his reaction to getting that check and etc. And he says, if you are arsed, which is, I believe, from my time over there dealing with the fine folks, that means if we give a shit. That's the way you'd say it. If you give a shit, he has been doing a BBC sitcom called Two Doors Down for like 7 seasons on BBC One. And now they're going to do an 8-night run at the Hydro in Glasgow, where the WWE runs their fucking shows. They're doing like the live performance of this sitcom 8 nights in a fucking row. So this ain't no dog and pony show, apparently. He's got himself involved with here. He also hosts the Heart Scotland breakfast radio show every morning. He does the Christmas pantomimes. I mean, people in Wartburg are going, what the fuck are these things? But these are big deals to them over there. And twice a year, he does Grado's Big Family Wrestling Bash at the Pavilion Theater in Glasgow. And April 25th, only has 100 tickets left. Is going to sell out 1,500 people with only Grado announced on the card.
That's crazy.
He's a fucking cottage industry. I'm telling you. And here's the thing. People are going to say, well, Cornette loves this fucking comedy wrestler. If he's running his own shit and doing network television, I can soften up a little bit for him because also, listen to this. He says, I book decent looking guys that can work and talk. The only bleep on the show who doesn't look like a fucking wrestler is me. And I always go over. But
glad he added that at the end there.
Yeah. 6 matches, 3 in the first half and 3 in the second half. He wants to keep the mums and dads entertained because when you need them to want to come back because the kids always want to, and the parents need convincing to bring them. So he doesn't book anybody that looks like a bag of shite, and there's no 3-way dance bullshit. It's just straight up good guy versus bad guy. And that's why they keep coming back. So, and he did mention that apparently it looks like he's 10 years too late for the WWE's comedy spot because Danhausen's got it now. He says, so here's a curse for you. Fuck off. And that's from great. Cheers, mate. And all that type of lingo they use over there.
You know, I'm not too familiar with his work, but I know who he is, and I've seen a little bit of him. And, you know, he's right about the timing of it. If you look at all the ironic things that became big with wrestling in the States, like Orange Cassidy, or Danhausen, or A Timeless Tony Storm, whatever it may be, he was kind of one of the early guys doing that. But I guess the difference is not that none of them have business sense, but it seems like he's pretty entrepreneurial and has found a way. I mean, for an indie wrestler, I mean, I say that, I don't know if they consider him that over in England, but, you know, here in the States, for an indie wrestler from 10 years ago to have everything going on he has going on is pretty amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean...
And where would he be, you know, if it was 10 years ago and there was an AEW starting up, is he one of the guys AEW would have gone after?
Oh, my God, he would have been the champion at that point. Because for one thing, he's barely a wrestler now, and I don't say that as a knock. He was barely a wrestler then. I'll say that as a knock, but he doesn't have time to he wrestles on his own shows that he sells out because he's doing goddamn network TV and playing Santa Claus to the goddamn royal family. I don't know what the fuck he's doing over here, but he's doing every goddamn thing. You can't get away from him. Apparently, people are trying. But that's the thing, is that he was so hot. TNA drew houses over there off him without the benefit of...
That's what I remember hearing.
Billionaires backing and a potential, you know, they're talking about a feud with they're going to unseat the WWE and all the buzz when AEW started a few years before that, when everybody had accepted that the TNA wasn't going to be the ones to get the job done. He still drew for him because he was so hot over there, and he had the entrance and he got on legitimate television. Can we say that now? Like legitimate theater. He got on fucking actual television.
Yeah, I mean, it's BBC One. Not BBC 4, you know.
Yeah, well, whatever. But not, I'm just saying, not in the wrestling universe. He was on legitimate television shows. And because he was an entertaining personality. So he kind of did, well, unfortunately, without the big contract that Danhausen's gotten first. But he kind of did what we hope our young friend Danhausen will do, which is be entertaining in some kind of way that he can branch out into other forms of entertainment besides wrestling that may be more longer term suited to his needs. And you used that goddamn word again. I swear to God, before 1995 or whatever, you would never have heard the word ironic except if you were reading 1800s literature. Now it's come to mean, apparently in my eyes, bullshit. So I was looking up ironic, which irony, to see how close it was to bullshit. And it's the use of words to convey the opposite of their literal meaning, or incongruity between what might be expected and what actually occurs. So in other words, people that are fucking saying one thing that mean another, so they're unbelievable, and what actually occurs is not what was expected, so it doesn't make a lick of fucking sense. So that's what everybody likes for ironic these days.
Well, thanks for writing in.
How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for writing in.
Oh, yeah. Yes, good to hear from you, Grado. And good to hear from the telephone ringing here suddenly. I don't know who the fuck that might be. All right.
And of course, any other wrestlers who have letters to the editor, whatever you want to call it, feel free to send your emails to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. And if we like it, we'll get to it on the air.
And you know what? If you're not a wrestler, but you just would like a piece of me, you want a piece of me? It's if Saturday, April 4th has already occurred by the time that you're hearing this, then at noon, that's when all the Jim Cornette ring-worn and ring-used merchandise went on sale at JimCornette.com. The shirts, the pants, the ties, the shoes, the glasses, the rackets, the ephemera, if you will, that I've used and abused over the last 30 years of my career. Now that I'm retired at the home and I'm not in need of these things anymore. I'm just having the doors open wide for the folks to come on in at JimCornette.com and snatch these pieces of history up. All details are just click on collectibles and boom. Whoops, there it is.
Whoop. There it is, not whoops.
Whoops. Well, whoops. What is it? Whoop or whoop? There it is. Whoop. There it is. Whomp. There it is. What was that exclamation?
Whoop.
See?
Whoop.
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 Sure it wasn't whoosh. Woof. Whoosh. There it is.
I know.
Whoop.
Whoops.
What is whoop? It whoosh. It suddenly whoosh. It landed right in front of you. There it is. But whoop, it's like, fuck, that thing just fucking fell over.
It's whoop. WHOOMP.
Well, it'd have been a bigger hit if they'd have written it properly.
All right. Well, once again, Cornette's Collectibles, JimCornette.com. Jim, why don't we start with what's happening in wrestling? Last night, as we are recording, a big Raw, WWE Raw at Madison Square Garden.
We got to start with that.
You don't have to. It's up to you.
Well, let's get it over with then. Because I know that it's a big marketing machine and these guys are stars. Sounds like the start of a Bill Watts memo. But again, 18,171 people in Madison Square Garden in New York, the pickiest audience, probably wouldn't you say altogether in the United States. You really had to impress the people in Madison Square Garden, Brian, from your own experience. You've been there more than I have, probably.
Yeah, and New York in general is a tough sports town. For instance, the Mets got a new third baseman, and 3 games into the season, they were booing him out of the stadium because he struck out a few times. Again, it's the beginning of the season, brand new guy. New York's a tough market. You have to perform here, and you have to perform well. You'll hear it. Or you won't hear it.
Okay. See, oh, yeah. And they have seen through all the eras, right? We're talking of Austin and Undertaker type of shit, and Mankind and the fucking Attitude Era and Angle and all that. I mean, just when shit was fucking happening, right? And if they're old enough before that, they remember goddamn Hogan and that cast of characters.
$8 tickets.
Well, and that's another thing they remember, but even for the price, even if it was the same show, the point I'm making is these people in Madison Square Garden became a glorified studio audience for a 3-hour television show where there were 4 matches that I think didn't, and I know everybody says, oh, Cornette hates it when the AEW matches go 25 minutes, and I do. But if you've only got 4 matches on a 3-hour show and they only go 10 minutes or less each, that kind of fucking sucks too, doesn't it?
For those ticket prices.
Because this was, yeah, this, and again, this is the hardest audience. And this is one of the most jaded, one would think, audiences if they've been around for lengths of time because of all of the greats and near greats that have, performed there, etc. And they get a 3-hour show where they have 4 matches, and in the middle, all the stars come out and talk to each other and or have a 30-second flurry, or in some cases, just throw around a bunch of security guards. And I don't know how at those prices they can continue to get those numbers for. They could have sat there and watched it at fucking home. It's not like that. All those. How many people would you say were in Madison Square Garden last night for seeing their very first WWE show?
Oh, I don't know. I have no way of. I hadn't even thought of that question. I don't know.
one would think it's not. Again, in Madison Square Garden in New York City, where they have been consistently more than most places, most of those people, one would think, have been there before. Wouldn't you imagine?
I don't know. They don't run there that frequently, and the ticket prices are pretty high. I don't know. That's why I'm actually thinking about it. And there was a time where there were always new people coming in because a lot of the older people weren't coming anymore, too. But I don't know what it is
because a lot of the older people were going, but there was always the steady, you knew in your hometown, half the people, 3/4 of the people are the people who come every week or every month or whatever. You can kind of see. But point being is they were happy with this in New York. I mean, it might play in Poughkeepsie, but they were happy with this show at Madison Square Garden. Apparently,
they were making noise.
Goddamn, if we had formatted, again, I think back to my experience under the Emperor of Poopdom. If we had told Vince, yeah, we're going to start the show with a fucking 3-minute entrance, and it's not for Hogan or Austin, before anybody fucking says anything or does anything. And it's just, and then whoever is entering, in this case, it was Cody. They went straight to no recap or anything, straight to Cody music. Out he comes, Cody. 3 minutes after the start of his music, he spoke. What do you want to talk about? And goddamn music plays. And here comes Stephanie. And Brian, my reaction was that's a very tepid reaction. But again, it was New York, these jaded New Yorkers. But it took, she ran out of pop by the time she got there, didn't she? Into the ring, she had already, it had worn off. And then we get basically a scripted promo that Stephanie has gotten a chance to memorize for herself about her grandfather built Madison Square Garden. Toots Mondt and Jack Curley would both like words.
But even if you're referring to just that building, I mean, as a wrestling promoter, her grandfather had that building for what, 14 years, 13 years? 13 years, I think. And
yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I guess they didn't want to say the house that Vince built, but it was the whole thing. The whole thing was a ridiculous argument here. You said scripted. That's a nice way of saying it. This was Vince era WWE content.
Yeah. This was almost like some writer sensed he's about to get fired and came up with this idea to shoehorn Stephanie McMahon into something completely out of nowhere to please her and save his job. This, in her heelish and unlikable way, she recited this bunch of shit that really never got to a lot of the point till the end. You didn't know where it was going to, about Randy Orton is so diabolical. You got to think like Randy Orton. I mean, you just, like you're just a babe in the woods here. A babe in the woods, baby. It's the bull of this was some bull in the woods. Dusty could get down and dirty, she said, but you're not your father. And this version of Cody Rhodes can't beat this version of Randy Orton because he's the viper and the snake and he'll strike and a blah, blah, blah. And Cody's standing there and taking his thing from her. And then his comeback is acknowledging how violent and viperish Randy Orton is, but I'm not afraid. But then the comeback was bleh to the point and to Orton. But then he got the only big pop maybe of the thing, or definitely the biggest pop. Cody told her, well, I'm not my father, but Stephanie, respectfully, you're not yours either. And there they came. They wanted somebody in New York. They wanted somebody to it mentioned Vince as soon as they saw Stephanie. They had to refer to him in some kind of way. The fans did. And they had to know that, or they wouldn't have put that line in that it wasn't going to get fucking booed or whatever. But nevertheless, then Stephanie slaps Cody.
Oh,
and
that looks so bad.
And says, you basically dresses him down like, I'm out here to help you. And basically to smarten you up, kid, because you're in over your head. But basically, fuck it, nevertheless. Randy's voices are going to cause you to lose. And she referred to the Randy's voices and whoever else he's listening to. And who knows what. I still say, my idea is better. He's on a dead phone. The voices are telling him on the phone to do the shit. But nevertheless,
I think Vince.
It ain't. I'm just.
Hey,
nevertheless,
Randall, hi. How you doing?
They're not going to allow him to have any telephone communication or emails that aren't monitored by an independent third party. Nevertheless. Yes, fucking Stephanie goes to the billionaire princess, tells Cody that Orton's going to beat him basically at WrestleMania because doesn't know what he's doing here. And she goes to walk off and he snatches her. And she spins around and bows up at him. I thought for a minute she might have to whip him here. But he said, Stephanie, I've got 2 words for you. And they start coming up. Oh, thank you. And he walks off on her and the people are, Buh. So, yeah,
I got 2 words for the writers. Fuck you.
I got 1 word for Cody at WrestleMania, which he's going to hear over and over. Boo. The conditions are right for, like the severe thunderstorm warning, Brian, where you got to have 58-mile-an-hour winds. You know that for a severe thunderstorm criteria. I believe we can now officially announce at least a moderate risk of severe boo storming for WrestleMania with Cody Rhodes against Randy Orton.
They should have had Brandy come out there and tackle Stephanie. That would have been the only way to save this segment. That would have been the only way to save this segment and give the world the baby face they need. Yeah, I mean, again, I've said it for a while. They booked Cody under. He's the world champion. And I'm saying they booked him horribly. They've not given anyone a reason to cheer him. And I don't know what this segment was supposed to be. I don't know what kind of pop they thought Stephanie would get. I don't know why they think Stephanie is good on the mic in terms of sounding realistic or real.
Or likable.
She sounds like she's going over a script, like you said, but again, it sounds like it's a script from 10 years ago. I got tired of seeing her slap wrestlers, and nothing ever happened. And now she's doing it again? To the world champion? You said it, talking to him like, listen, kid, he's 40. What the fuck? Like, what is this? They shoehorn Stephanie onto this like they shoehorn her into everything. But this booking is not helping Cody.
She's very shoehorny.
Unless they're going with Cody's going to turn heel by being crazier than Randy Orton, they're not doing anything to help Cody Rhodes right now. That's what I think. Do you see any positives in the booking of Cody Rhodes right now?
Oh, no. And I'm wondering if that's why, again, maybe the golden boy, the chosen one, this is his path. Golden boy Cody Rhodes, baby. What a heel. What a heel he's going to be. But nevertheless, that's what happened there. We were past 15 minutes in to get to that point.
What did that segment build up? Like, what did that segment led to nothing? It just ended. It just went away.
Well, it basically told people that Stephanie McMahon thinks that Cody Rhodes is going to get his ass whipped unless he gets his head out of his ass, which is what you want everybody to think about your babyface, I guess.
They should have had Heyman come out there as his advocate and say, you can't have the boss's wife, who has no official position, coming out here slapping talent.
Yeah, I bet you he could hook her up with hook him up with a personal injury attorney.
Yeah.
Fucking take care of that.
Important note, the drive-thru is brought to you by the laws of Stephen P. New, 877-50-STEVE. Get even with Stephen, newlawoffice.com.
But you know what? We don't beat that to death as much anymore because poor Stephen, if he has any more
he's overworked.
Clients or customers, I won't say customers. He's not running a fucking ice cream stand. If he has any more clients, he'll go out of his mind. But nevertheless, it was time now for the first match of the night. After they've broken and travelogued and plugged and whatever, we're 20 minutes in. So we're going to get a tag team championship match with Logan Paul and Austin Theory against the Usos. And it's a street fight. Oh, God.
Thank God. Thank God. Any other match with the Usos, I wouldn't have been able to watch at all. I'm not saying this is perfect, but it's better than watching them wrestle a regular match.
Then why was this the shortest one ever? Normally, when we have to watch them wrestle a regular match, it goes on forever. This thing, they had the entrances. They rang the bell after 30 seconds. Air Uso did a dive, and they went to a 3.5 minute fucking break. And so when they finally came back, they had a table in the ring and 2 trash cans, a kendo stick. And they were super kicking the trash cans and beating the trash cans with the kendo sticks because it's no DQ. And I started to say, and no JC. But by the time that I could even try to skip anything, it was like 6 or 7 minutes into this thing, counting the break. The Usos superplexed Theory through a table in the middle of the ring, and all of them are laying dead, which gives the opportunity for the attention to go to Logan Paul down on the floor, where he goes to the front row. And Brian, can you vouch for the people that I'm not lying when I utter these words? Logan Paul gets a pair of brass knuckles from his mother, who pulls them out of her purse.
Yes.
That is what happened.
Mama Paul.
Mama Paul. Me, Mama Paul. Mama Paul. Mama Paul, we got a thing going on.
Because his name is Billy Paul, you went to his song? Is that what was the what led you there?
Well, I just was thinking of Mama Paul. You know, I spent many great moments with Mama Paul. About 2:30, she'll be there. Mama Paul.
All right, let's get far away from the falsetto and back to
Mama Paul.
The Vision and the Uso. Hey, and you know, when they were hitting him with the kendo sticks, I had the thought, thank God he has that garbage can on to protect him, because otherwise those kendo sticks would really hurt.
Well, obviously, but that's the deal. But here's the thing. Who was it? It's just, it's okay to do every once in a while. And actually, in old-fashioned street fights, when you didn't see them every day, it was a nice little spot when everybody knew how to take it and what the fuck. And they go crazy with it now to the point where it loses. He was hitting him so many fucking times, the guy couldn't sell anything. You see what I'm saying? It used to be like they do a little piñata spot, but whack the can and let the guy fucking sell. And it's rushed. But nevertheless, it can be dangerous also. And I'm trying to think who it was. I can't remember. But one of the girls, and I think one of the guys, over the period of time that I've been around to see these things, they put the can over their head and they hit it with the fucking stick so hard that the can, because they didn't have their hands upright, it chipped their teeth in their face, right? Bam! Because it's just, you can't see with the can on. You can't see which direction it's coming from, and you're trying to sell, and they're hitting so fast. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So nevertheless, Mama Paul gave the knucks to Logan Paul, and Mama Paul is sitting next to I Show Speed, who is the person of somewhat dubious employment status in the world who just shows up places. And last time we saw him, somebody speared him.
Oh, Braun Breaker.
There you go. So whatever the fuck it is that this guy does that he is asked to be these places, he's sitting next to the mother of Logan Paul. But now LA Knight, who's been doing color commentary on this thing, comes over and he jumps on Logan Paul and he just walking a dog on Logan Paul. Logan Paul has dropped the knucks. So Speed is when Logan Paul is attacked by LA Knight, Logan Paul holds on to Speed and drags Speed over the rails. Now they're fighting over there and Speed sees the knucks. But apparently, even though he's sitting next to Logan Mama Paul, he's supposed to be a babyface, or at least was not against Logan Paul or against LA Knight is what I'm trying to. He's a babyface. He was on LA Knight's side because when he's trying to spin around and he's got the knucks and somebody grabs him on a shoulder, he hits LA Knight, knocks him out, but he didn't mean to hit LA Knight. So he must have thought it was Logan Paul. Did you understand this goddamn exchange where he gets the knucks, he puts them on his fist, the guy touches him, he spins around, knocks him out. Then he's like, oh shit, I didn't mean to knock out LA Knight. Well, then the only other choice was Logan Paul, but now he's freaked out and he fucking leaves. Why is he sitting next to Logan Paul's mother? So Speedy, he takes off. Logan Paul gets the knucks and swings and misses, and the Usos double super kick Logan Paul and then fucking super kick Austin Theory and spear him. But as the other guy's going to go to the top to do 18 more finishes, Logan Paul, who still has the knucks, hit Jimmy and knocked him out. 1, 2, and they did all that in under 10 minutes with the break. What the fuck is happening? What was happening, Brian?
And then, of course, I Show Speed left with the Vision, with the bad guys.
Oh, did he? I thought he'd already gone when he left before.
Oh, no, he came back out because they had a vision of him with the Vision.
I'd already quit paying attention to my vision to this fucking thing.
What happened? They got the belts off.
Well, then what the fuck?
Usos?
Why did he goddamn leave to begin with? What is happening?
I don't know. And how did Mrs. Paul get past security and the metal detectors at the Garden? I don't know. But new tag team champions, the Usos didn't have to lose in a square and fair match. And the Vision have something going for them finally now. Because all the interesting stuff with Paul Heyman is not involving them right now.
Yeah, I think he's kind of, well, and I don't blame him actually, because this thing with Brock and Oba is huge. And his intervention in this thing, well, we'll get to the other thing.
But you're right about again,
go ahead.
You know, I went to the Garden for years, and until the late 90s Raw, there were no wrestling shows that didn't have a card of 7 or 8 matches maybe at the Garden. I don't know. And then all of a sudden, with the late 90s Raw, you started seeing more extended interview segments, opening segments that went a while. This goes into the early 2000s. None of that went away. It's only more now. And clearly they allotted a lot of time for promo segments and no time for matches. And the matches they did give you, you know, again, I've always said I liked the Io Sky. I didn't watch that match. I didn't care. I didn't watch the Penta match. I didn't care. I wanted to see the stars and what they were going to do, and none of them were wrestling.
But somehow or another, Brian, in a previous generation, we had a way to still do Raw that had buku multiple times more viewers than it does now, and still have it be an action-packed show with a roster half the size that they've got now, a third the size, whatever the size, if you count NXT, who knows what the multiple is, and not have the people in these major NBA arenas, which we were in then also, sitting there for fucking 15 or 20 minutes before without seeing any appreciable action, even amongst stars. If you're not going to give a main event away, somehow they managed to interact. And boom, boom. And there were more matches and they were shorter when they happened, but there was more of them and it kept the thing flowing. And nobody, again, it's wonderful to be able to milk the people and get them to chant your name and etc. But at this point, not only for the television viewer, 5-minute entrances, which we'll get to here in a minute, actually 6, with just the announcers just kind of filling, the blah, 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 telling you the story. Okay, but it's still a guy walking to the fucking ring for 6 fucking minutes. And so for the television viewer, you got a lot of places in this show you could get distracted without turning the whole thing into a goddamn 100-mile-an-hour formatted in a blender type of crash TV like old Vinny Roo would write. There's some middle ground to be able to keep things moving along. And again, with the size roster they got, but you get a lot of girls match filler, and then you get, the tag team garbage match so they can get the belts away from the Usos or whatever the fuck it was. And the stars that are in the main events at WrestleMania talk to each other in various forms. But goddamn, for 3 hours, if you congealed that all down into, would that make a good Pro Wrestling This Week with Gordon Soley and Joe Pedicino back in 86 when they had 48 minutes without commercials?
Yeah, pretty much. The saddest thing is just that Vince McMahon succeeded in making the fans accept this, because they didn't always. And now more than ever, they accept it and they pay the highest prices ever for it. A wrestling event with barely any matches billed as taking place, and if you go there may not be too many matches that actually take place. And then, like you said, I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in that building when the music's playing and people at home are in a commercial break. And for 3 minutes, I have to listen to someone's music while they stand there. That's awful. And somehow they've made people accustomed to it. They're fans, and they accept it. It's one of the things that you look at AEW and you say it's a big miss if there was just an alternative product that was, angles and promos the way you're supposed to have them, but also matches that people care about. But, whatever. But that's the problem.
And even if
they've made people used to this, that's the problem.
Even if not everybody cares about every match in the 3-hour program, if it's a somewhat legitimate, regular talent, recognized star of some level against a guy who knows what the fuck he's doing, you can have him out there for 6 minutes, bell to bell, with a minute entrance apiece, and it's not going to fucking kill the goddamn show and the network fucking tear your contract up. But it's easier to take 2 of those than it is one of them that goes twice as long. Nevertheless, an hour and 15 minutes into the show, we finally get Brock Lesnar. See, I don't know how. Maybe that's how I realize it now, Brian. Paul has been saying Brock Lesnar like that for so long. He has built his throat muscles up. That's what it is. It's not that he's got jowls. It's just that his throat muscles are so prominently developed that it's pushed the edges of his cheeks and shit out. But I bet those things are hard as a rock. I don't know. It's just an observation.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess so.
But nevertheless, Brock and Paul are in the ring, and his name is Paul Heyman, etc., etc., and did the promo for him, for Brock. Hey, this Oba Femi, one time Seth Rollins distracted Brock, and another time Brock wasn't dressed to wrestle. Well, now he's dressed to fight. And he started cutting a promo. Anyway, he did cut the promo on Oba and jazzed that up a little bit, and he's impeccable with that. And then to give it even more gravitas, to carry more weight and cachet, Brock grabbed the microphone and said, all right, to hell with this. Oba Femi, get your ass out here. But here comes Adam Pearce, who looked like he needed a drink. And he said, no, this ain't going to happen tonight. You're not screwing up the WrestleMania main event. He's got security with him. Blah. I mean, again, everybody knows what I'm talking about. This is constantly done. Please leave the ring. Here's the security guys that don't look like they get whipped cream with an outboard motor. And then suddenly the lights went out and the music played, and here came Oba Femi. What is the thing? If the Sheik did the camel walk, then what is the thing that Oba does called?
It's a war dance.
The turkey trot, or what? The war dance amongst who? What fucking fearsome tribes war dance like that?
I don't know enough about the history of fearsome tribes, but obviously it's some sort of motivational, this is what we do when we go to battle kind of.
It looks like a fucking
dance.
A dance from an 80s country video when those fucking boot scooting bars were goddamn fashionable. And then the ones where you could hang the woman's underwear on the fucking bar and everything.
What?
Boy, it was a fucking pain in the ass getting the goddamn nails out of those things too while nobody was looking.
What?
Anyway, so here comes Oba. And he does his walk to the ring, and he pitches 4 or 5 security guards around and shoved Adam Pearce. Adam took a nice little bump, his monthly bump. And then Oba walks around the ring doing his, and the announcer saying, oh, he's getting inside of Brock's head. He's getting on my fucking nerves by this point. Half his show has been people walking to the fucking ring. Get in the goddamn ring. So he got on the apron and then he got in the goddamn ring. And as soon as they had the face-off going, Triple H slid in and got in between them. And he got booed. Because everybody by this point was like me. Just fucking do something, even if it's wrong, as Mama Cornette would say. And he's in between them and they're, and Brock ended up being the one. He stepped out and he and Paul are leaving, and then Brock grabbed one of the security children and F5'd him on the floor on the way out. So this was literally 15 minutes, and I know it's good promotion for their match. And again, as I mentioned, they're following the principles that I've prognosticated. If they do anything physical, it's brief, and Oba has so far come out on top of most everything. And if they don't do anything physical, it's going to even be briefer. And so that's what, but goddamn, we're an hour and a half into the show by this point, and we've seen this promo where they came out and stared in menacing fashion at each other, and Stephanie slapped a world champion. Am I being too pessimistic? You know, it is cranky season, Brian. I told you I was cranky at the top. Am I being too pessimistic here?
I think so right here specifically, because I think the Brock Oba stuff has been the best thing on Raw. Even with the strong even with the strong CM Punk Roman Reigns stuff. The anticipation for anything to happen has made this the best thing, and something as little as Brock coming out there in his gear made you think something could happen. And, you know, again, now we've gotten 3 weeks of people really getting into Oba's entrance before he does anything, and this is the week where he did the least. But also, they probably should not have him do anything else to Brock Lesnar before WrestleMania at this point.
Again, maybe Brock might piss his post-toasties in some fashion, nothing devastating to leave him down and vulnerable or whatever, but otherwise it's made, but it's just, again, this segment was well done because of everybody that was in it. But I'm just tired of watching these shows where the most of time is spent playing the music and walking to the fucking ring. But at least we could skip ahead because the next match was Penta and Kofi Kingston, and neither of us gave a shit. But that was another 10 minutes. That would, on any other show, that would have been felt like a 20-minute match. At least to give the people in the building something to fucking look at. And that was like 10 minutes.
You know, Jim, though, when you talk about the Brock and Oba stuff, you look at Brock and you look at Oba, even Heyman. It must be hard for these three men to get a good pair of jeans, a pair of jeans that fits, that feels good, that doesn't crush the nether regions, a jean that you could trust. And we know someone the listeners can check out today, Jim, the perfect jean.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. Because, imagine Brock Lesnar is not built like the normal guy. I think it's safe to say that most normal people are not built like the old goddamn guy that used to do the gorilla suit spots on a 60s comedy series. He's gigantic and enormous everywhere. But the perfect jean, well, they stretch and you can move freely. You can squat and bend and sit and dangle the boys with just reckless abandon without fear of them getting caught in the vice-like, hammer-like grip of the seam of the goddamn stiff, awning-like material jeans that you are currently wearing. Do you get the mental picture, Brian, that I'm trying to draw here?
Something like that, yes.
Well, the perfect jean will not render you sterile every time you bend over to fucking flush the toilet. So that's the thing. Whether you look like Brock Lesnar, they got all kinds of sizes. I just looked at the various sizes when I ordered my jeans. And that's another thing. I went to the doctor one time because I was worried I was losing my hair. I got this bald spot starting. He said, well, it might not be anything we can do. It's in your genes. I said, Doc, that's not the problem. I've got hair in my genes. But the perfect gene, you can actually shave and just be naked down there, and it's not going to chafe you because they're more comfortable. Because they don't have, sadists and masochists making these goddamn things like the normal genes where they'll just cut your balls and right up in your taint. They'll give you a red taint from ass crack all the way to fucking ball zipper. But I'll tell you, the perfect gene is not going to do that because they've got all kinds of sizes and all kinds of colors and all kinds of styles and various things. But they all have one thing in common, is that they're perfect because they're comfortable. So whether you got athletic legs that lift weights or you got ham hocks because you got your own mud flaps coming out of your goddamn gluteus maximi, whatever, you can find something to fit you here. I don't know about Heyman, though. It might be hard. I don't know that you might have to go to some type of veterinary supply instead of human clothing.
All right. Well, listen,
Heyman.
We have no guarantees, but I think even Paul Heyman wouldn't have to worry about finding a good pair of comfortable fitting, good looking jeans from our friends, The Perfect Jean.
Well, and that's right. And you can go to The Perfect Jean. And of course, that's JEAN. Not like Gene Simmons. He's not perfect.
Gene LaBelle, The Perfect Gene.
Well, no, he was actually with a G. So
I was going based on just the word, not the actual spelling, but
oh, no, I'm trying to direct fucking illiterate people how to goddamn find this thing. The Perfect, well, I'm trying to help everybody.
Gene Madrid, The Perfect Gene.
Gene Madrid, there you go. ThePerfectGene.nyc. I guess they're so big they got their own fucking thing now. Instead of .com, it's ThePerfectGene.nyc. And you can read all about how wonderful and amazing these things feel, how well they're made, how you can avail yourselves of the opportunity to purchase them, along with the butter soft tees and polos that can perfectly hug your arms and chest, Brian. And yeah, I know how much you like having your chest hugged.
Hey.
And they've got a mid-weight plush brushed quarter zip pullover that's luxuriously soft. Apparently, much of this is made of unborn virgin goat's fur, which is, again, one of the softest things known to man.
We don't know about
That's what Albano told me.
I don't think that's a reputable source for this, considering he's been dead for about 20 years. But Jim...
Well, see, this should have last, too, for
let's
you.
come back around. A great deal. Let's give the listeners that information one more time.
Well, I'm going to give them some of the information now. Thousands of guys who wore Levi's for 20 years have donated their entire collection to a bonfire after trying one pair of these jeans because of the comfort and the quality and the fucking fact that, again, don't just put your balls in a vice. Get 15% off your first order and free shipping at theperfectgene.nyc when you use the code JCE15. Again, 15% off the first order plus free shipping at theperfectgene.nyc, or you can Google The Perfect Gene if you'd prefer to do that, and use the code JCE15 for 15% off. You can do either of those things, apparently, and both of them will work.
The Perfect Gene.
Yes.
Back to Raw.
Oh, well, back to Paul. Paulie's in the ring again. I mean, it's better than Jelly Roll. Last Friday's SmackDown has become the Jelly Roll show. If we can have Heyman out here, if we've got to listen to somebody talk, I'd rather it be him. And we don't have to worry about watching him walk to the ring endlessly, because they obviously, he made 3 trips this night. They had a golf cart. There's no way he'd have been able to do that. So, and at the start of the segment, as soon as he started speaking, the fucking ring lights went out for a second, and then they hit him with a spotlight, and he said, oh, I guess the fucking lighting guy is from New Jersey, and got the pop. And he's trying to crow that Logan Paul and Austin are the new tag team champions. And, of course, he wanted to give Madison Square Garden Brock versus Oba, but Adam Pearce stopped me. And here comes Pearce now again. Shut up. Shut up. I'm not saying that to Pearce. He's saying that to Paul. Have you checked your emails today, Paul? And then they went into just this kind of awkward banter about, well, no, because they did it at a backstage thing too. I'm from New York. I keep my ear to the ground and my nose in the sewer, which I guess is kind of apropos of New York life. But he gave a non-committal kind of awkward answer, like I know everything. I haven't checked my email. Well, then you know that the Boston Police Department has dropped all the charges against Seth Rollins. Anytime, well, I'm a New Yorker and I'm not scared. I'm the last manager standing from the 80s and the last promoter from the 90s. And he's got all his cholesterol from the 2000s. No, that was a good line. It actually was a truthful line. Of the people currently active today in whatever this fiasco is they call a wrestling business, he's the only one with the patience. So basically, but then Pearce tells Paul, well, you might not know that Seth Rollins has been cleared for medical combat or whatever. How did he medically cleared for whatever? And Paul, humming, and Seth's music plays. And the same thing, he comes in the ring from behind, and Paul's just standing there like, well, I don't see him yet. And so Paul ain't going to move because he doesn't want that chair shot to be off. But Seth hits him in the back again with a chair. And Paul just, how would you describe that bump? Was it a crumble bump or not really just kind of a timber bump? He just kind of,
It was a rookie indie manager bump.
well, it looked like it almost defied the law of gravity because he got hit with the chair and then he just suddenly everything about him went numb and he lost his bone structure and it just went down and kind of rolled. Then the problem was now he's down and Seth was trying to either pick him up or roll him over or put him into place to yell at him and go for the stomp. And once you get Paul down, he can't get back up. I don't think without a bit of assistance or taking a second. And I'm not even being funny here. And he started going the other way besides the direction Seth was going to take him. So it took him a second to roll. It was like working with a beached whale where you're just trying to roll him into some type of position to, and finally he's going to go for the stomp. And Gunther appears at ringside and pulls Seth out and puts a sleeper on him and chokes him out somehow. I believe Seth trying to fight it so wildly that he actually punched Gunther in the fucking eye and busted his Gunther's eye open, his eyebrow. So the fucking heel that comes out and pulls the guy out and chokes him out is the one that ends up bleeding after the fight's over with. But now we have Gunther and Seth Rollins because they got nobody else. This is a Cinderella story out of nowhere. Is Braun not going to be ready? Apparently.
I mean, you would think that. I mean, it's interesting. Gunther didn't leave with Heyman. It wasn't like he was helping Heyman or joining Heyman. He just went after Rollins. Which begs the question, where was Gunther? How did he know Rollins was going to be there if Heyman didn't know? But yeah, I don't know what to say other than I guess Braun Breaker is further off than the most optimistic thoughts. I think everything worked out for Rollins in terms of the most optimistic timeline, but it's not going to necessarily happen for everyone else.
Well, Rollins has had, 4 more months on the front end, so one can understand that more easily. Braun, we said, was going to be close, and I didn't see how it might even happen at that. And I'm just, because there's no other explanation, because elsewise, the person Seth Rollins would be, if Braun Breaker is going to be on the show, he would be wrestling Seth Rollins, is the statement I'm trying to make in English. And that apparently ain't going to be fucking happening.
Does Gunther Rollins work for you?
Well, I mean, it would be just a wonderful match, but it's just got like,
after everything Rollins has been going through for the last year, this has nothing to do with any of it.
Exactly. It's like, you see two people working at the fucking grocery store when you go in, but that you have no reason to believe they hate each other. And suddenly you walk in and they're goddamn down on the floor choking each other. You're like, well, how did that fucking happen? But now if they'd have been cussing each other every time you're in there about 2 or 3 months ahead of time, well, then you're probably going in more often just to see when they're finally going to break down and have that fight. At least that's the way I'd look at it.
Well, another WrestleMania match being set up on WWE Raw. What else did you watch, Jim?
Well, then, we had 11 minutes and 35 seconds left in this 3-hour program after we got finished with Io Sky and Rochelle. And again, here comes Roman Reigns to the blackout thing and da-da. And he makes his music entrance and he gives us the finger and the pyro and the intro. And he walks slowly in the ring and around the ring and stared at everybody. And his music came down and he milked it some more and they sang his name and he paced some more. And then they chanted CM Punk and then he stared at him some more. from the time that his music started until the time that he spoke, 5 minutes and 50 seconds. We got to get a grip on this, people. Jesus Christ. It's just killing me. You got time to go make a sandwich. Think about that, Brian. How long does it take you to make a ham and cheese sandwich?
I don't need ham and cheese sandwiches.
Well, whatever any type of sandwich that may be made from any type of deli meat and the product of that nature.
Depends, like a turkey sandwich or a pastrami sandwich?
A turkey sandwich.
What am I putting on it? What kind of bread?
Oh, goddamn. Okay, you got a turkey on rye.
Oh.
With fucking
seedless?
with brown seedless. Oh no, seeds, no.
Yeah, I agree.
Seedless rye turkey with a brown mustard, not a fucking yellow mustard, obviously. That's for peasants.
Maybe some tarragon?
I don't know about any of these type of paragons or tarragons or pentagons or whatever, but I'd put some cheese on there, but I know not to even bring it up to you. And some bacon.
Sometimes I do a turkey on whole wheat bread that's toasted, and then I put some tarragon on the turkey, and then a little bit of black pepper, and maybe some coleslaw, depending on the mood I'm in, and it's a very delicious and nutritious lunch.
Well, coleslaw on a side, not on a sandwich.
Now, sometimes I put it on the sandwich.
Oh,
I want it in the bite.
But
sometimes I put it on a burger. If I make a fresh burger on the grill, I'll put coleslaw on the burger.
There's so many things going on.
You've never done that?
You can have slaw on a dog. You can have slaw on a barbecue sandwich, but you don't have coleslaw on a goddamn just a turkey or fucking pastrami sandwich or like a club sandwich with coleslaw on the sandwich.
First of all, you can't have coleslaw on a hot dog. I don't know who taught you that or told you that, but that's wrong.
I'm not saying that I do. They do that in the Midwest, and it's not unheard of or within the bounds of propriety.
I think you could put sauerkraut on a hot dog, not coleslaw. And coleslaw goes fine on a fresh burger. If you have a plump burger that you make, put some coleslaw on top of it while it's hot. Every bite will be delicious. And a pickle.
Sauerkraut works on a fucking dog or on a Reuben, but anybody who just eats it by itself is obviously mentally impaired.
Well, it's very healthy for you.
Well, I don't care.
Very mentally impaired? Not just regular mental impairment.
It's vinegar effluvia without the fucking greasiness of the meat and the onions and everything around it to fucking balance it out. And or the Russian dressing.
Well, back to the ham and cheese, WWE Raw.
That's another thing. That's another thing. They don't have Russian dressing places anymore.
Places? There were places that had just that?
Well, no, you go to a good high-quality steak place, you get the Russian dressing back in the day in the 60s and 70s. None of this pussy-ass Thousand Island shit. When the Russians got a bad name, apparently, the people who made the salad dressing moved to the Thousand Islands.
People saw Nikolai Volkov in that same red suit for 40 years and said, I've had enough of Russian dressing.
There you go, boom. And they incorporated somewhere else, and it's lost some of the tang. Anyway, Roman Reigns, there's fucking 5 minutes left in the show, and we get New York City, acknowledge me. And the Punk's music plays. I'm like, oh, goddamn, even him. But at least here he came. He's got his fist taped. He took 30 seconds to get to the ring. He was my hero of the night. And he slid in and they got in a fight. And they go to the floor and the referees and the officials. And they're trying to separate them. And Roman goes for the spear, but he ends up spearing Petey Williams. And then Punk gave Roman the fucking go to sleep on the floor down there. And they were about to get him out, but he circled around again and grabbed Roman Reigns and powerbombed him through the announce desk and then got on top of him while he was punching him, saying, Roman Reigns, which I thought was a nice touch. And that was it. So literally, that was, we got Punk and Roman Reigns for like 75 seconds as the main event in Madison Square Garden. And there was no dark match afterwards, just for the people.
Yeah, I saw that. That was surprising.
Again, say what you want about him, but that was something that Vince always would say. They're going to get, even if it's only for a couple minutes to see him, but at least they're going to get that Undertaker versus Austin versus Foley versus whoever my big star of the time is, main event that we've advertised, and just to send them home, happy. And we've just seen the stars. They've just seen the stars. They're happy here, kind of, because Punk seems to be the more popular of the two with the general fan base. But it wasn't like they saw any kind of a match. And there were two men's matches, was it not? Let me go back here and go through my notes. The 10-minute street fight thing that they had, and Penta and Kofi. This is the first, not just WWE wrestling show, but any wrestling show ever held in Madison Square Garden that only had two men's matches on it.
Well, WWE Raw, another record-setting night at Madison Square Garden, the house that Vince McMahon Sr. built. And with that, Jim, we shall return right after this short commercial timeout. All right, just not feeling it today. Sorry, I apologize to all my fans and, of course, the executives.
No need to apologize. And there's no one in that category anyway.
Well, Jim, I believe that's it for reviews. So what we're going to have is topics and questions for the rest of the show here. We got some big things happening. Why don't we start with fast food news? I have an article here from the New York Post. Get free ice cream at Chick-fil-A if you do unusual family-friendly activity, is the headline in the New York Post from Rita Wiggle.
Wait. For one thing, I didn't know Chick-fil-A was noted for their ice cream. But secondly, an unusual family activity?
Family-friendly activity. You dirty man.
Well, no.
And they have good milkshakes. You've never had a milkshake there? I mean, that's, I guess.
I didn't know that they were a big ice cream outlet, like your Dairy Queens and your Frosty Freezes and things. But so an unusual family-friendly activity, doesn't that still leave, with the state of people and society as it is, doesn't that leave way too much room for interpretation?
Well, let's find out what it is. One fast food chain really gives a cluck about table manners. Select Chick-fil-A locations have implemented a reward system for families who go phone-free.
Oh, okay. I thought it was going to be like an America's Got Talent thing, where if you came in and performed some kind of unusual activity with your family, that you would get free ice cream.
Yeah, I don't know if that would fly.
So that's the way that I took it. I was like, that's why I said it's so open to interpretation.
Oh yeah,
because it could be anything. You could have acrobats, you could have tumbling, you could have card tricks.
Where did that egg fly out of?
Yeah, you could have, they're shooting the ping pong balls or blowing the candles out. You get anything.
Well, let's get back to this family-friendly article here, Jim. In an effort to encourage human connection over dining while doom scrolling, the fast food chain is offering free ice cream to those willing to share a meal sans screens. Brad Williams, who owns 2 Chick-fil-A restaurants in Georgia, was inspired to implement the dairy bribe after witnessing a mother of 2 spend an entire meal on her cell phone. Here's a quote from Williams. It just got me thinking how to get people to disconnect in order to connect and to take a technology timeout. In response, Williams created a cell phone coop for every table. Decorated with chicken wire, the coop instructs patrons to set their phones to silent and surrender them to the coop. If the devices remain in the box for the duration of the meal, diners get a free ice cream dessert.
Now you've lost me already.
So let's stop there because that kind of explains it. A chicken coop on your table with real chicken wire, and you have to somehow get your phone in there, and you can't take it out.
Is the coop on each individual table, or where is the coop located?
Well, again, going back to what it said here.
What did it say exactly?
The exact words were decorated with... Oh, no, he created a cell phone coop for every table.
For every table. Jesus Christ, why don't they just fucking make the fries better?
Here's a quote from him. We're trying to slowly create rituals that create disciplines and will slowly create habits.
Well, here's the thing. Just number one, make the food and service better. And number two, give them the goddamn ice cream. If you just look across your counter at this, again, as I said, all these fucking modern, the Wendy's, the McDonald's, they all look like a waiting room at a fucking STD clinic in a major city. Just look across the goddamn counter and see who's not on their phone, who's actually talking to each other or eating the food that they just bought. Because that's whether I'm with somebody or alone, when I'm in a fast food place or any kind of restaurant, of course I'm not going to be on my phone because I'm fucking eating. And I'm going to devote my full time and attention to this goddamn greasy triple cheeseburger and these hopefully hot, crispy fries that are in front of me. And why would I want to have my phone out when I should have grease to my elbow to begin with? And I want to make the phone a greasy mess that I'm going to stick back in my fucking pocket. And who do I want to talk to, or what do I want to find out about that is more important than eating that triple while it's still hot enough to almost burn the inside of my mouth? And again, it can wait 15 fucking minutes.
Well, they actually have, if I scroll down here, some numbers. A 2019 study found that people who ate while staring at their smartphones consumed, on average, 535 more calories than those who focused on their meals. And a January 2018 study found that 1 in 3 Americans can't eat a meal without being on their phone.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
81% of Gen Z...
First of all, if I got on my phone while I ate, I would weigh 300 pounds. But second, why does anybody... Who gives a shit? I don't want to talk to anybody to begin with. And all the news is bad. And if you're in Wendy's and you need the news, you can look on the screen and they got the news on. And it's all bad. So what I don't understand what the attraction is.
Well, do you think this will catch on, the chicken coop service?
And no, I think they ought to put the fucking people in the coop. Because what kind of nut can't just put their phone down? If you're alone, okay, and you're bored, you're waiting to be served at a sit-down restaurant. I always bring a magazine if I'm alone, or a newspaper if I was going to go to the Philly diner or whatever the fucking case. But I can understand if you're alone, you want to look at something. Once the food comes, put the fucking thing away. Eat your food and then leave. Be about your day. There's things to do and places to go. But if you've got somebody there with you, then do like they do on WWE, stare at each other.
Especially if it's kids. It said the guy saw a mother with 2 kids and she was just staring at her phone the whole time.
Well, yeah, no wonder these fucking little snot-nosed, crumb-snatching fucking semen blurbs are running rampant all over the world, because the mothers are on the phones while the kids are just out being delinquents and toilet papering homes and stealing fucking hubcaps and things.
Well, this has been fast food news, ladies and gentlemen, and from there, let's get to the wrestling talk. Jim, I have an article here from SI.com, the takedown on SI.
Oh boy.
by Aiden Chacon. WWE.
Now wait, how do you spell that?
Chacon.
So it can't be Chacon
It could be.
or Chacon.
I don't think it's Chacon or Chacon. I think.
Why do you have to give it that Chacon?
I think that's how you would say that. How else would you say that? You see that and you say that's a Chacon?
Makes him sound a little obnoxious, though. He's sound a little rude, a little curt. You don't want to talk to a guy named Chacon. Sounds like he'd goddamn be the commandant of a fucking prison camp.
Well, what about Aiden? You have a problem with Aiden?
No, Aiden sounds inoffensive enough.
All right, well, here's Aiden's article. WWE Hall of Famer set to wrestle last match at 83 years old. Former WWF Tag Team Champion Jimmy Valiant has set the date for his last match. Ric Flair set the bar in 2022. I don't know if I would say that. Oh, boy. Ric Flair set the bar in 2022.
Ric Flair sat at the bar in 2022.
Jimmy Valiant is about to rip through that bar in grand fashion.
Rip through that. Is that a goddamn cogent simile? Rip through that bar?
Ric Flair set the bar in 2022. Jimmy Valiant is about to rip through that bar in grand fashion on April 25th. 83-year-old WWE Hall of Famer Jimmy Valiant is set to wrestle his last match for NAWA Championship Wrestling. Valiant made his wrestling debut in 1964 and traveled the world as a pro wrestling star. He and kayfabe brother Johnny Valiant overpowered the tag team scene as WWF Tag Team Champions for 370 days. I'll stop there for a moment. Any initial thoughts on one of your all-time favorites? Everyone thinks Jim Cornette and Jerry Lawler, but Jim Cornette and Handsome Jimmy, one of your all-time favorites, finally getting ready to hang it up at 83.
Woo, mercy! Handsome Jimmy loves you all, baby. Woo, mercy! Handsome Jimmy Valiant, besides being on the Mount Rushmore of all the Tennessee babyface legends, it's Lawler, it's Dundee, it's Valiant, and then, really, you got to go back to Fargo to find any individuals that over consistently for that long. But it's he had his retirement match in Louisville in 2004 for OVW. So he's working his way across the country with it. He's taking it on the road. No, I love Handsome Jimmy because not only was I a huge fan when I first saw him, I had just found Dick the Bruiser's TV from Indianapolis and Miniker, and now we know that they were in the middle of the war with the Sheik in Detroit, and that's why they had all this talent and everything was hot. But it was just like, this is some big time shit. And Jimmy Valiant came in as a single managed by Bobby Heenan. So automatically he had heat. But the whole strutting pretty boy blonde, but he had the spin on it with that body language he had and the mercy and the promises on the back of the jacket and just the whole package, right? As a single, I was already familiar with him, and then they brought Johnny in to be his brother, and I got to see their first run on television as it happened. I didn't know at the time, that, they've never been together before and the whole backstory. I'm 11, 12. But the Valiant brothers were tremendous. And to be perfectly honest, Johnny was great as the brother. It wouldn't have worked without Jimmy. He was the personality. He set the tone for the thing. Johnny just had to keep up, and he did that. But they were tremendous, not only as a heel team on promos, and just so completely different and over the top, and they, woke everybody up. But in the ring, there was so much action. They did the Tennessee tiptoe, and they weren't even from Tennessee, where they had the double knockout with each other in the end. And Jimmy was always doing the thing that it was an offshoot of the Bill Longson thing. But what Bobby Heenan would do also is when the babyface is starting to make his comeback or trying to and chasing him around the ring, Jimmy would go in the circle and circle until finally he dove over the top and took the walk on the floor. And the people are on him. He was just a magnetic personality. And again, together, it just happened that conditions were right. Bruno was not the WWF champion in 1973. He had given it up in 71, and he was just doing dates for promoters that he liked and that he wanted to work for. He went to Japan for Baba. He went to Los Angeles for the Battle Royal. He worked at Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis for Muchnick, blah, blah, blah. But he came in to work for Bruiser. And remember that he and Bruiser and Bruno beat, who was it? Ernie Ladd and Baron von Raschke for the tag team title. And they were the super team. They were like Dusty Rhodes and Nikita, the superpower. That was because Bruiser, everybody thought was the world champion in Indiana. But if you read the magazines, Bruno had all the covers because he was in New York. So they were like, well, these guys are unbeatable.
I got that match from Ron Martinez when I was a teenager.
Yes, I saw it when they aired it on television. And that's the thing. I'm sitting there, oh, this is cool, because even though I liked the Tennessee TVs and it was the Louisville, I hadn't been to the convention center, which is what they called Louisville Gardens then yet live, but I was watching the TVs, but there were studio TVs, and here Bruiser was doing 10,000 people for these shows at the Expo Center or the Fairgrounds Coliseum. And here's Bruiser and Bruno Sammartino against the Valiant brothers now. Holy shit. And what I, didn't realize was at the same time he was in this, that's when Vince Sr. was making the pitch to him to come back. So they announced that on Indianapolis TV the weekend after it happened, that Bruno had beaten Stan Stasiak for the WWF championship in Madison Square Garden. And even then, I'm like, okay, I guess we're not going to see him too much more. But he came back, and the Valiant brothers beat Bruiser and Bruno for the tag team titles because Bruiser had to take his belts off of them. And that got the Valiant brothers over in that territory. Anybody that saw it, immediately. So that was a big run. And that's what got the Valiant brothers into the WWF, because when Bruno worked with them, he immediately went to Vince Sr. and said, oh, these fucking guys, these guys, Vince, they're great. They bump like crazy. And they went to New York and had a record run. What did they have the best run? Now we're getting into your territory, pal. They had the best heel tag team run since the Graham brothers, didn't they, in the Garden?
I would say so. And again, there was also, although not as strong as the first one, there was a second run. That was the one where eventually Jerry became the brother, but it went on for a little while. They main evented the Garden.
And Bruno teamed up with Strongbow when he was champion still to work with them. And so anyway, that run, that now they've been in all the magazines, they're national names. And then they kind of bounced around a few different territories where they could, a couple of times they had short runs for whatever reason in some places. But Jimmy, point I'm getting to, Jimmy ended up, because he started making Indianapolis his home base. He was originally from Tennessee. He was born in Tennessee in 42, right? 43, whatever. And so he was living in Indianapolis and working for Bruiser. The Valiant brothers were back there in 77, but since Bruiser was running a more reduced schedule, Jarrett brought Jimmy into Memphis to be in the Southern Title Tournament. Lawler and Dundee's program in 77 had just finished, and Elvis died. And Jarrett realized that he couldn't keep Lawler a heel much longer anyway, because he was the hometown guy and he was the top box office attraction. So they worked a deal playing on the people's sympathies over Elvis, where Lawler announced he was going to retire from wrestling to pursue his musical career because of the loss of the other king of Memphis. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. And the people bought it. And so he retires, and they have a tournament for the Southern Heavyweight title. And originally, Jarrett had booked, like, Dick Steinborn came in as Mr. Wrestling because he couldn't get Tim Woods, and he just wanted some outside names. So he booked Handsome Jimmy Valiant from Bruiser, because Bruiser didn't run Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Memphis, Louisville, and Evansville in Jarrett's territory. And when Jarrett saw, I think they were going to do some kind of DQ and advance the babyface in the first round, but when Jarrett at the Coliseum saw the heat that Valiant was getting and what he was doing, just doing his shit in the ring, he was so animated then and moved so much and was violent and was athletic and was trim. He had like a fucking 38-inch waist at this period of time. It wasn't like the boogie woogie man you saw in the 80s, right? I just want to make that point. Jimmy Valiant had some of the wildest, most violent matches I've ever seen in those days when he was 30-something. Anyway, Jarrett saw that and sent the word the referee switched the finish and put Valiant over. He sent him to the finals and put the fucking belt on him and booked him back. And
that's crazy.
Then it was what, I think 4 weeks or whatever. And business was the shits because Lawler wasn't there. And the other towns held up better than Memphis, but Memphis, you were dead without Lawler on the card, but they had to sell it for 4 weeks or so. And then Lawler announces he's going to give his big concert with his backup band, Jimmy Hart and the Gentrys. And they had it at the Mid-South Coliseum, and as Lawler is doing his final song and playing the guitar, Valiant came out and broke the guitar over his head and broke up all the fucking musical equipment. And Lawler comes back as a babyface. And that started, he and Handsome went, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I'm going to say in Louisville and probably in Memphis as well, for the next 16 weeks, they were against each other in the main event in some fashion, single, tag, stipulation, whatever, at least 12 out of 16 weeks. And fucking Handsome was a free bleeder. But Lawler did too in this angle, because this was his first major babyface program of his career. He had been a babyface briefly earlier on, a few years before, but not after he'd established himself. So that Lawler was not a fucking, Abdullah the Butcher level fucking blade master, but he bled a lot against Jimmy because this was the first babyface run, including they took a break from it. In December, Harley Race came in the Coliseum for 2 weeks. Lawler got a world title match against Race, and that is the one that went to a 60-minute draw that the people see the music video, the I'm a Man Chicago music video from. It's on Twitter all the time.
Is that what that is?
Together.
That's Chicago?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a live version because it's not. It's never
not
been
the
able to
studio
find
version.
it.
I love the studio version by the Spencer Davis Group. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Chicago did a studio version also, and that ain't a studio version either. I think it is a live Chicago performance. If I would be a betting man,
they should have used the Spencer Davis version. It would have been so good. But whatever.
Well, it's a goddamn wrestling music video in 1977. I'm surprised we got it at all. But point being, they went to a 60-minute draw, and the next week they came back with a 90-minute time limit, no disqualification, whatever. And people came back thinking he's got it this time. And that's where they did the angle where Valiant, dressed in street clothes, not booked on the card, when the referee got knocked down, Lawler's about to pile drive Harley. That's Lawler's finish, but it's illegal. But the referee ain't going to see it. And Valiant slides in and breaks the bottle over his head. And then not only do he breaks the bottle over his head, but then when Lawler's down on his knees selling and you can see, oh my God, he's bleeding, Valiant takes the broken bottle in his hand and stabs Lawler in the chest with it. And Lawler actually bladed his fucking chest because they took him to the hospital and it made the newspapers that he was treated for cuts with X amount of fucking stitches or whatever and released. And that instantly, again, that heated him up. They'd already been going for 6 or 8 weeks. That heated him up for another couple of months. And not only did he cost him the world title, but he fucking came in a ring and stabbed him. So anyway, they drew incredible fucking money Jarrett he didn't have Nashville yet, and he hadn't opened Lexington at that point in time. He would the next summer, and they did business, Lawler and Valiant, Lexington too. But on the Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, Memphis, Louisville, and Evansville, Valiant was on top in main events against Lawler and making more money than he was making working for Bruiser while he was still in Indianapolis. And that's how my mom and I ended up driving him a variety of places, because Big Mama, Felicia, his ex-wife, would bring him down to Louisville here to start or whatever, or pick him up at the airport if he'd gone to Memphis or whatever, but he'd need a ride over to Evansville or whatever the case. And he did not mooch at all. Handsome Jimmy is known for never wanting to drive a car. He used to meet the Italian Stallion in Charlotte to ride to Rock Hill, South Carolina. It was 14 miles to the building. And he would leave his car at the store that we passed by on the way out of town to ride with Style 14 miles. But he bought gas. He was very respectful. And that's what when they had Handsome Jimmy Jr., when he was on top in Memphis in 79, I think, they named my mother as one of the official godmother. I don't know how many other godmothers he had, but she was one of them. So anyway, I was a big fan of Jimmy Valiant's. He got over when I first saw him as part of the team. And then that program with Lawler, that got him over so strong in Memphis, even into 1983 and 84. If they announced in Memphis that coming back to be a special partner or, somebody to help Lawler get even against so-and-so, if you just announced it'd be Valiant coming in from the Carolinas, they would sell out. They announced that he was going to be there one night. He got sick in the Charlotte airport, couldn't make the plane. They had to take him to the hospital. And when the people found out he wasn't in Memphis, they had set the seats on fire, literally. They had a fucking riot. So, I mean, he was just incredibly over. We went on a location shoot they did for one of the music videos where in Memphis, that's when Lawler and Jarrett bought him the house in Memphis. They bought him, they said, if you'll come in and work for us, we'll pay you and we'll buy you a house, pick out a house. And he took him up on it, was there for a while. But then when he got the big money offer from Crockett, he left the keys in the mailbox and fucking told him he had to go. But he got this entire motorcycle gang fully outfitted with all of the bikes and the girls and the whole 9 yards to come out to the airport. This was 1979, or we probably would have all been SWAT teamed to shoot the fucking video. They had Randy West, Jerry Jarrett's fucking son-in-law, with the video camera, and he shot a plane landing, and then he shot Handsome Jimmy on the moving fucking escalator like he just come off the plane. I came rolling into Mempho, TWA.
Smoke It Johnson!
And he walks through the airport, and he's greeted by the biker gang, and he gets on the biggest motorcycle with the biggest fucking handlebars, and he leads the charge, and they switch from his song to Bob Seger. Headed out to Fire Lake. And that was a music video so if we shot one with one camera guy, no audio guy, and me as the still photographer, and it took an hour and a half. But I took the picture. We sold thousands of the pictures of him riding the motorcycles and with the biker gang and etc. It just, the girls bought Lawler and Dundee and the Fabs, and the guys couldn't get enough pictures of Handsome Jimmy Valiant. Anyway, back to his retirement. That was an 83-year career there that I just...
Well, I have a quote. I have a quote from Jimmy Valiant here in this article. Yes, this will be my final dance. I've retired before, but this is truly my last dance. I'm honored to hang up my boots after 62 years of wrestling pro. I had over 15,000 matches and drove 6 million miles on U.S. highways, plus flying to get to those matches. I want to dance down that aisle to my theme song, Boy from New York City, one last time to make wrestling in 7 decades, from 1964 to 2026, a reality for me.
And you know, the thing is that he can do the same match he was doing 35 years ago.
That's what I was going to say. I saw a match when I was a teenager tape trading of Jimmy Valiant from Memphis in the studio in like 1980, maybe 81, 80, I think. And it was one of the more ridiculous things I've ever seen. And I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was almost like he was bigger than the ring, but his style never changed. His whole thing was constant motion and constant movement. You could pick holes in it if he did something and stopped. But because he never stops, you never get a chance to really like poke a hole in it. It just keeps going.
But now, see, here's the thing. Some people who might never seen him are going to go, well, constant motion, constant movement. How's he going to do that when he's 83?
Ow,
That's the thing. We're not talking about actually doing anything to anyone. He can dance down the aisle without his feet leaving the ground, because his dancing is going to be clapping his hands and nodding his head. And when he was in his prime, he was the constant motion and the throwing the punches and the whoa and the rearing back and the fucking bumps and the hip tosses and on offense or defense, he was in constant motion and bumping and doing these things. But as he morphed into the Boogie Woogie Man, then it became all about the personality. It became, how long can the beard grow? It became the music and the clapping and the kissing the announcer and the hugging the kids and the high-fiving the fans and the woo, your boogeyman loves you all.
Willie.
That was it. And the people loved it. And it's hard to translate. When we first got to the Carolinas, because he started in Charlotte, I think in like 81-ish, 82-ish, they brought him in as a heel.
As a king.
And King James with J.J. Dillon. And that was a popcorn fart. And I think it was who was at the time booking? Was it a Dory? I don't know. But some way he just said, let me do what I'm doing in fucking Memphis. And he did that, and boom. And think about this now for everybody, again, that's shitting all over, because, I mean, the matches by 85, 86 were horrible by standards of if you're trying to see wrestling. He would come in, he'd get the flurry, they would poke him in the throat, he would go down, he would go into convulsions on the mat as they kicked him and stomped him, and then he'd make a comeback and boom. And but in a company with Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair and technicians like Arn and Tully or the Midnight Express and Brutes, the Road Warriors, and the Anderson brothers. He was one of the most popular baby faces I've ever seen anywhere. The Rock and Roll Express got shriller, higher pitched, more female screams, but the Boogie Woogie Man for that period of time until about 87, and then it was done. The people went crazy, absolutely berjork whenever he came out and did his shit. And that's why the Dusty kept him in that program with Paul Jones and Paul Jones's army, whether it's the Baron or whether it's Pez Wadley or whether it's Paul Jones himself.
Manny.
Jimmy Valiant, especially in the Carolinas towns, North, South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, he was so valuable to the cards, to drawing the live house, that you had to have him on it. But he had to have like his own little universe to work with just because they were foils for Jimmy Valiant. The only reason they were ever put over is to get heat so Jimmy Valiant could come back and get even. And that was Paul Jones's position for what, like a year and a half?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. If you've only seen the Paul Jones stuff, like from 87, 86, 87, let alone 88, it's rough. And by then, Jimmy Valiant had lost any semblance of being in shape, and he was over the top for even himself. But if you look at 83...
He was, and also, and you mentioned Jerry Valiant, because the reason why Jerry Valiant came to be, nothing against Guy Mitchell, but Jimmy and Johnny were scheduled to go back and main event for Vince again all over the territory. And that's when Jimmy came down with hepatitis and had to take like 3 months off. He was worn down and his eyeballs turned yellow. And, so because he was here in Tennessee and about to finish up and go there, but ended up having to go home for a few months. And that's why then he joined and became a 3-man team. But in 86 for Crockett, he's 4 years old. He's lost the bodybuilder physique. It's all about the gimmick. And the gimmick was, just get the match over with, because we want to see handsome Jimmy come to the ring, be handsome Jimmy, and beat somebody and then go away.
Yeah, in 1983, if you see any footage of Mid-Atlantic that year, he is ridiculously over. It's crazy. And it's enjoyable, too, because the fans were so into him.
Some of the same stuff, 83 stuff, there's some Mid-South Coliseum stuff on YouTube, and you can see that the 6-man tag with, maybe the Assassins and somebody against Lawler and Handsome and whatever. That was a sellout, but there may be some older Lawler Valiant stuff on YouTube, but that was right in that point where I didn't have my VCR yet and a lot of tapes didn't get saved. But the Bob Lou Chicago Hall of Fame stuff that's out there has the Valiant brothers in Chicago, and it was just, he was a whole different fucking guy.
Better as a babyface or a heel in Memphis? I like him as a heel, but obviously he's so strong and important as a babyface.
Best matches with him and Lawler, some of the best I've seen, period, much less his best matches. And as a heel, overall, he was better in that time period, but he got over so good as a babyface, it would have been stupid for him to do anything else. And so, but even then, he was, as a babyface, a strap match with Lumberjack Joe LeDuc, there was some shit going on there for the first few years, and then started the other side of the mountain.
So he leaves WCW, we'll call it that, I think at the end of 88. Next time anyone sees him, he's lost all the weight. What were your thoughts the first time you saw the skinny Jimmy Valiant, which he's been ever since then?
Yes. Well, I was warned, because if you'd known Handsome as long as you'd known him, and then all of a sudden you saw he weighed like 75 or 80 or 100 pounds less or whatever it was. Oh, shit. But no, he became a vegetarian. And then, he met his wife, Angel, who he's been married to, I guess now and together all total 30 something years, and moved up to his place in Virginia because he was so over in that territory that when he would go to those small towns, especially in that, western part of Virginia, everybody knew who he was. And he started his Boogie's wrestling camp there and has lived there. Oh, and he, he don't need a mansion and diamond rings and all that stuff because he has the earth,
Shawsville,
the farm, and Shawsville. But, but that's the thing. People are going to go see that and they're going to have fun, and he's going to come out rail thin with the long beard that he's had. He's 83 now. He had it since he was 43, and he's going to clap his hands and cut the promo and nod his head, and it'll tear the house down. And he can at least still do the stuff that he was noted for in some fashion, more than the guys that tried from the same time period when they were noted for other things.
They should bring in Baron von Raschke. He's still out there.
And how old is the Baron now? The Baron was always younger than he looked. I'm going to say the Baron is not as old as Jimmy. But when I was 12 years old, I could swear the Baron von Raschke had to be 50 years old because of the bald head and the ugly sneer and the cauliflower ears. And I didn't know he was a goddamn hotshot amateur from Nebraska. I thought he was from Stuttgart, Germany, for fuck's sake.
85 years old, born 1940.
Well, there you go. See, even the Baron, he finally aged into his gimmick.
It was a weird moment for me where I saw a picture of Killer Carl Krupp and I was like, he looks young. I was like, oh my God, how old am I if he looks young finally?
That's another thing. Carl Krupp, as he would say, had to be the ugliest man on the planet, didn't he? And
it was perfect for the gimmick. It was perfect for the gimmick.
Classic heel face. The just hideous, like some Marvel Comics drawing of a German baron from a castle somewhere. I met his wife after he had passed away in Nova Scotia while we were up there doing the Raw, that memorable fucking year I spent up there. She was not what you would have imagined Killer Carl Krupp's wife would have looked like.
Did she put you in the claw?
Now, she put me in a couple of things, but not the claw.
All right, Killer Carl Krupp, that famous awful cast match. What do you call it? I mean, they both wore casts in the match, right?
Well, now we got to explain it, because when Lawler broke his leg in early February of 1980, immediately panic set in amongst everyone because, our biggest star has down, right? And how bad is this going to be? And it wasn't a good break to begin with. And they kept trying to rush Lawler because, again, Louisville did okay. Evansville did okay. Lexington held up because it was a once-a-month town. But as I've told the story, there were high spots in 1980 in Memphis occasionally. But for the most part, that was the worst year that Jarrett had. And they got down to less than 3,000 people a week by the end of the time that Lawler was injured. So there was always a pressure. And Lawler being, obviously having a piece of Memphis and main event pay overall, that was even before he was a partner. But they still wanted to get him back. So it's for a week to pop a house. They did this in Memphis, Louisville. Maybe Evansville, but I definitely know they did it in Lexington. Jimmy Hart was managing Killer Carl Krupp. He was the top guy in the first family at that point, and they did some kind of deal on TV where Lawler was still trying to come back, wasn't medically cleared, although they didn't have that terminology in those days, just, oh, he's not ready yet. But they did something, and they booked a match where that Lawler could wear the cast on his leg that he actually had on his leg, and Krupp had to wear a cast on his leg also, and that was going to handicap Killer Carl Krupp because Lawler was used to the cast. I don't know what the fucking logic. Basically, Lawler still had to wear a fucking cast because his leg was broken. But to draw a house and to get the fucking people back interested, they said, okay, we're going to make Krupp put a cast on too, which he did, and then lumbered around like he was wobbly and couldn't fucking stand up, and Lawler could knock him down and shit. And then Lawler actually did a leg drop where he leg drops the fucking guy with the cast, and the guy sells it big. Oh my God, it's plaster. And they drew okay, but in doing that, Lawler re-aggravated his real injury and he was out longer. And then they still jumped the gun a couple of times on him. He came back in November in Lexington at Rupp Arena to have a single match with Jimmy Hart just because he could just stand there and walk around flat-footed and Hart could bump for him. But he was out for 11 months until he finally came back the last Monday in December of 1980 in Memphis and the first week of January in the rest of the towns officially with the Dream Machine, that series, where if he beat the Dream Machine, he'd get 5 minutes with Jimmy Hart, which he did and did. And that was what started the big run of houses where every week, I don't think they didn't draw less than 6,000 people in Memphis for anything the first 5 or 6 months of the year. And they had the Funks and Idol and Hogan and the Dream Machine multiple times and Joe LeDuc and various people from Lawler's past come in. But during that period of time that Lawler was out with the broken leg, overall, there was nobody to replace him because even if Dundee was as popular as a babyface, well, then who's Dundee going to wrestle? Well, they've seen Dundee and Valiant. That's when Valiant had been a heel because Lawler had switched heel. But once Lawler got hurt, then they switched Valiant babyface because they needed a top hero to fight Jimmy Hart's stable. And then as soon as Lawler came back, they switched Jimmy heel again so he could fucking wrestle. Am I droning on, Brian? Do you give a shit at this point?
I love it. I think it's great, and I think the listeners probably do as well. And I'll ask you another question about Memphis in a moment. But with Jimmy Valiant's last match on the horizon,
yes,
maybe it's time he finally says, I'm ready for a shave. Maybe it's time that he says, Mercy, I want to see my baby face. Whatever it may be, and whoever you may be, and whatever bad impression you may do, we all need a good shave, and to do that, you need a razor that you can trust, sturdy and classy, looks good, functions well, like the ones from our friends at Harry's.
Well, that's right, and you may remember that Handsome Jimmy, the Boogie Woogie Man, got his head shaved that time in Crockett Land and had to come back and get even by shaving the heads of Paul Jones and Shaska Watley. Or no, they shaved his beard.
They did his beard and his head at different times.
They beard and his head and his eyebrows. And they got this little tool and they stuck it up his nose and got the hair out of that too. What? He looked like a goddamn hard-boiled egg. But folks, I'll tell you what, if you want to look hard-boiled but not like an egg, if you just want to look like a swave and deboner type of fellow walking down the street, you need our friends at Harry's, because you got to say your old razors that dull too fast, and then they irritate your neck, and then they start scraping you, and then finally they're taking chunks of flesh off, and you get some bacteria in there, and then you get infected, and then it starts turning green, and the pus comes, and then you're walking down the street, and you got pus-filled blisters all over your face. People think there's something wrong with you. Or You're spending too much, $30 for 6 or 8 of those refill cartridges. You don't want to do that. That's a big scam. What you can do with our friends over at Harry's, and by the way, that of course is the all-new Harry's most advanced razor ever. That's exactly what we're talking about. That is not going to scrape your face or cut your carotid artery, and it's not going to set you back an arm and a leg or skin flesh off of your face. All you got to do is go to harrys.com. Harrys. I'm just wild about Harry's, and Harry's wild about me. You know why they're wild? Because they got so much extra time after they just shave their face with this brilliant new device and don't cut themselves and don't squirt blood all over, look like a Saw movie, that they've got all kinds of extra time to go out and engage in ribaldry in the hot spots and the speakeasies. It's the Harry's generation. Brian, you've heard of it. All the hep cats, the young kid, they're out there getting laid. The men and the women that shave their faces with the Harry's razor get laid more and for longer periods of time, from what I understand, than the average individual.
I don't know how you understand this. This data has not been supplied to us by the advertising agency or anyone.
Well, I'm going out and doing my own mouth-to-mouth research. Going to the people directly and groping around for clues. Yes, listen, I'm groping around for clues.
Listen, let's get serious.
Folks, again,
no.
Harry's, yes. They own their own world-class blade factory in Germany. Otto Vons is the security guard there. There's no outsourcing and no middleman. They take these things. These things are as sharp. They're a rapier-like construction. Multiple blades here. There are 4 or 5 in these heads. And then they got the lubricating strip on them. So you got custom-made German blades. So you know they're fucking assholes over there. They like to cut things up. And you've got the
that has nothing to do with what's going on with Harry's, for the record. Let's not associate Harry's with people who like to cut people up.
Harry's from Schenectady. He doesn't go in for any of that stuff, but you got to go to the Germans to get your weaponry. And then the handle, Brian, it's like a stainless steel alloy. It'd be, again, perfect in a fight. You could kind of use this to load your fist because, boy, it's got some weight to it. It's ergonomically designed. You can hold it between 2 fingers. It'll just glide right down your face and just bring all of the fucking whiskers with it. And it's still cheaper than the Gillette Fusion 5, even with all of these various features it has. All you got to do right now is go to harrys.com/JCE, and you're going to get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10. That means the razor, one of the refined 5-blade cartridges, a 2-ounce foaming gel of foaming shave gel is what it is. For sensitive skin, I might add. Harry's foaming shave gel for sensitive skin. So you can actually use this as a personal lubricant when you're getting kinky time because it's for sensitive skin. And a travel cover to protect your blades while you're on the go, possibly diving out a window because the husband got home. Just right now, head to harrys.com/JCE. Tell them you heard about it here. You'll get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10. harrys.com/JCE. Just one $10 bill is all you need to pay, and you will get this. You'll just rake this over your skin hundreds and hundreds of times in gratitude for only $10.
Harry's.
That's who I'm talking about.
I hit a few wrong notes. I was at the wrong angle. My arm was
You're
at the
trying to
wrong
sneak it in is what you're doing. It gets longer and longer every time.
I've heard that before. Jim, let's talk about a few things happening in wrestling. We've talked recently about the announcements of who's going into the WWE Hall of Fame, the 2026 class of the WWE Hall of Fame, where You get to watch your favorite superstars fall asleep as people give speeches.
It's going to start at midnight again, right?
I think so. It's going to start after SmackDown. So, I mean, everyone's going to be at SmackDown and then have to put on a suit and go to this. And, of course, they have their big inductees this year, Stephanie McMahon, AJ Styles, Demolition, Dennis Rodman, and the Legacy class, which are the deserving legends who will get a moment where their name will be said once while a video is played. Maybe even in black and white. We'll see. But joining Psycho Sid will be Bad News Brown, a.k.a. Bad News Allen. But what are your thoughts on Bad News Brown being the latest Legacy inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame?
Well, again, like I said, it's ridiculous that Dennis Rodman has taken up space when Sid was. It's not like Sid needs to be in the Legacy wing in black and white like Whipper Billy Watson, for fuck's sake. He was a star in the 90s. That just puzzles me from a standpoint of, they could make a video package and make it part of the presentation, even if he's dead. You get a family member out there to speak for a minute and a half, but you've done the video and got people pumped up instead of just blah.
It's even more awkward when they go from like someone from a different era to you, when it's like Frank Sexton, Psycho Sid. Like,
yeah,
different worlds here.
I think Sexton wouldn't have put him over, especially in Boston.
That's
but
right.
Nevertheless, the point being, so Sid and Rodman's taking up space because he's a celebrity, and they think that somehow they can't even think that the celebrities at this point are adding to the ticket sales for the live event or to the viewing of the telecast or whatever. It's just to make their bogus ass Hall of Fame in their mind look more legitimate when they have these celebrities and they can get publicity from TMZ or whatever, but it's ridiculous. So I think Sid should be in that spot. With Bad News Allen, he was Bad News Brown in the WWF, but Allen co-age everywhere else in the world for his career.
Including the WWF, actually, originally.
Well, including his original run was as himself. He's not a star they've focused on in any of the retrospectives or the documentaries or whatever, but still he was there until 87, and he was there while Demolition was there.
Well, not 87.
Demolition's.
Yeah, it was a little bit later than that. He came in I think maybe the end of 87, early 88, and he was there He was there until 1990.
Okay, so even point being, it's the same. He was there at the same time as they are. He goes in the Legacy wing. And I know Demolition were overall bigger names in the scheme of things and more enduring, but point being, again, are they doing it just because they have to check off the minority boxes that I'm not making this up. We have established they have to have a woman. They have to have a person of color. They have to have these demographic holes that they fill, as well as their main event inductee and this and that. But I don't think he's old enough for the Legacy wing with Thez and Londos and Toots Mondt or whatever either.
And co-workers who can give a good speech, and family who are alive to accept an award, and wrestling fans would like to see that. I think sometimes WWE doesn't think wrestling fans would like to see that. We don't want everything to go 40 minutes, but we would like to see that.
And having said that, as far as is he deserving to be in the Hall of Fame, obviously, especially with some of the people that are already in there that have had a tenuous relationship with the WWF at best, I don't know that he did the best work of his career in the WWF, because by that time he was older and he didn't get a chance to be, the guy that he was. But Bret Hart always had nothing But, good things to say about him is how strong of a draw he was in Calgary. And they loved him in Japan for 10 years back and forth going for Inoki. And since he had done judo and already been high level in that sport for quite a while, he started in pro wrestling late. So how old was he by the time he finished in WWF? That was 35 years ago, but I bet he was mid 40s at that. So
he was born in 1943. So actually he was older than that.
So 47. So that's, again, at Wrestling Hall of Fame, yes. And he was a badass, legitimate shooter as a judo expert. He was a tough guy. He was a convincing promo. And the matches, he wasn't exactly a Chris Colt level bumper, but from what I could tell, he made you work for it, but he could do it when he had to.
He introduced me to the Enziguri, which he called the Ghetto Blaster. That was his finishing maneuver.
And that was actually, I believe that was the first time that really anybody on a national basis used that.
When you're a kid and you love wrestling and you see all these promos, you sometimes copy them like on the schoolyard and stuff. But there was like certain, like with Bad News Brown, there were two things he would always say. One worked, one you couldn't say. One was, you spineless cockroach. You could say that. The other one, you beer belly sharecropper. That one wasn't one that worked on the playground, I'll tell you that.
Well, would they know up there in the wilds of Long Island, they'd know what a beer belly was, but would they even know what a sharecropper was?
Maybe not in elementary school, but by the time you got to middle school, you'd probably learn that in history, yes.
Well, that's true. When you're reading Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn and about whitewashing and sharecropping and things of that nature.
Well, Bad News Brown, again, he had a good WWF run. He had matches with Hogan, matches with Savage when they were both champion. Him and Jake Roberts. Maybe not the most exciting of matches, but
that's the thing. You could buy him against anybody, even the Giants. Even he had the deal where he backed Andre down. That the boys couldn't wait to talk about, because even though, most people liked Andre, that was high level fucking gossip when they got in the argument on the bus in the Calgary territory, and Bad News had him pull the bus over and asked him to get out. And, oh, boss, that's okay.
Well, I think it was Japan.
Was it Japan? I thought it was Calgary. Was somewhere on a bus. Calgary had a lot of buses. Maybe they just had vans.
He was the big heel in Calgary post-Mongolian Stomper. There was Abdullah the Butcher, there was Mongolian Stomper, there was Bad News Allen.
Yeah. And he drew him a ton of money during that period of time.
And a ton of heat. That's actually when Ed Whalen and all the problems happened and they got pulled off the air because...
That's right.
They beat up Mongolian Stomper's fake son, who wasn't his son. And Ed Whalen was so offended by the whole thing.
That was that Tommy Wright, wasn't it? Tommy Wright, they brought him to Calgary because the Mongolian Stomper was the legend of all-time heel in Calgary and scared Bret Hart when he was a kid. But then, the same thing in Knoxville. They get nostalgia kicks in and they become iconic, and they had him as a baby face. And they brought this kid in to be his son. So Bad News, what did they do? Pile drive him on the concrete? Whatever it was, it caused a fucking riot. And the level of violence and the riot from the fans and the kids in convulsions, and Ed Whalen said, fuck it, the TV announcer, and quit. And he knew the shit was a work.
Ed Whalen, too, when they did one of the last angles they did that people talked about, that people actually wanted to see, Davey Boy and Dynamite feuding in '89 when they went back after the WWF, apparently Ed Whalen was so offended by the idea that the Bulldogs were feuding, he edited half the stuff off TV.
Yes.
So you never got to see it, because he decided, and he had that kind of power, that kind of sway, he decided that he didn't want it airing.
Ed Whalen, I can't quote chapter and verse on what his position was in the community, but he was enough of a prominent person that he's the reason why they were able to get the TV when Stu had been off TV before for a while and the business had suffered. And he got TV and he was the announcer and he was the figurehead and he was also a raving babyface, like a fucking Calgary version of Harry Thornton in Chattanooga. And he wanted good, clean sport and all this other stuff. And he didn't want the heels to get heat. He was another one of those guys that would steamroller over him with the microphone if they tried to get heat. But also, he had the power, and Canadian television was even, I don't know about still today, probably, but back then was touchier than American television on what they broadcast. And Ed Whalen would overrule Stu on his angles and shit. Oh, no, we can't show that. And he got away with it because they needed him so bad, because they needed the TV.
Well, once again, Bad News Allen or Bad News Brown in the WWF. Going into the legacy wing, or going in with the legacy class, the 2026 class. There's a Hall of Fame, but there's no hall.
He's going in there. He's going in the wing. Wings, thighs, breasts, fucking necks, whatever the case may be.
Jim, speaking of the WWE Hall of Fame, this year, going in to the WWE Hall of Fame for the Immortal Moment Award.
What?
Which is the award established in 2025 to recognize the most important matches in WWE history. Last year, Austin versus Brett from Mania 13 won. And this year going in, Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant from WrestleMania 3. What are your thoughts on this match finally receiving some recognition?
It's been long overdue, Brian, hadn't it? That match would get some recognition from the fans. It's a forgotten part of history. Nobody ever talks about it. I mean, if they're going to do that, but they can't have Andre there and they can't have Hogan there.
No, now they get Nick Hogan there. That's what this is. This is how do we get a Hogan moment?
Cracker. Are they going to send him a ride to the airport? They're going to let him rent his own car. But they could use that time for Sid, is what I'm saying to you.
I agree.
I think we've got the picture by this point that was a milestone match in history, but whatever.
Well, congratulations to Mr. Hogan and Mr. Andre and their families and friends on this big recognition.
All of their families and Andre's grandfather that was 8 feet tall, the whole fucking family.
I'm sure if Andre was here, he would say, Hurrah! Jim, let's move on here with the show. Let's go now. We better go on with the show.
Yes.
A lot of listeners have wanted your opinion on this. I think I have a few things here to maybe be able to recap this. The love affair, in social media terms, going on between Vince Russo and Tony Khan.
Oh, good.
Have you been following this? Because as you could tell based on the participants here, the listeners have been flooding the email and getting in touch a lot about this.
What we heard the other day was that who complimented who first? Somebody from Vinny Roo's organization over there, that slapdash sloppy shop, says something, well, Tony Khan's got an open invitation to come on our show. And Tony Khan wrote back, well, I'd love to sometime or other. And the people were, oh my God, Tony Khan's agreed to go on the show. But he said, I'd love to sometime or another. I don't think they booked it, for a specific time and date at that point. I think we talked about this the other day. And now it was the same thing when we read that email exchange, the last email exchange between the two Vinces, where as soon as he's got an opening, he's like that fucking insurance salesman, and it's the porch scene, and It's a Gift with W.C. Fields. Immediately jumps in. Nice day, isn't it? Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, and then he proceeds to try to sell you the goddamn life insurance policy. So he comes back from Tony going, yeah, I'd love to do it, whatever, to try to get himself a job with a co-promotion between Tony's AEW and this outlaw band of reprobates and dipshits that he works with in a barn somewhere in fucking Colorado or whatever. He didn't even wait to talk to the guy in person. He's soliciting another job on Twitter. Is this what I'm understanding?
Out loud. We have a recap here, apparently. It started where Jonathan Coachman, who must broadcast with Vince Russo, I presume, responded to someone saying they don't watch AEW, but if Tony Khan agreed to do a show with Jonathan Coachman and Vinny Russo, it says Vinny Roo, and Vince Russo, he may give AEW another look. And Jonathan Coachman wrote,
anything would be better than that, right? That type of nevertheless.
We have an open invitation for Tony Khan to come on our show. We had a great conversation today with one of his female stars, Maya. If he can't, who the hell is that? I have no idea who that is. Anyway, if he came on shows like ours instead of podcasts of people, will only ask questions they want to know instead of asking questions to make him think about how.
What? Wait a minute. Did this guy graduate any kind of fucking school?
You worked with him as Jonathan Coachman.
That's what. No, he came after I left, didn't he?
Oh, did he? I don't know. I thought maybe he did. I don't know.
We may have passed in the night. He wasn't
that's right.
that
You had
memorable.
Kevin
but
Kelly
can he
and
speak
Michael Cole.
fucking English? I had Kevin Kelly and Michael Cole. Can this motherfucker speak English?
Let me try to do this.
Can you
sentence
read
again.
that again?
If he came on shows like ours, instead of podcasts of people will only ask questions they want to know, instead of asking questions to make him think about how he is going about his business, then maybe a few things would change. I know this from my time in WWE. You can't possibly have all the ideas, and the more good people you put around you, normally, the better any product is. Come on, Tony. Any day. And he tagged Tony Khan, obviously.
Wait a minute. So this, first of all, he can't fucking form a coherent thought there, but also he legitimately thinks that the more people that are chipping in the ideas, the better everything is, instead of, as we've talked about for the last 10 fucking years, that's the worst thing you can do. The big writing teams and the big creative teams and everybody having a finger in the fucking thing is what causes it to be a clusterfuck. But he's only worked in fake wrestling, not the real wrestling business, so he doesn't really know how things work.
And if Tony says you're right, who do you recommend? What's his answer going to be? Right? That's the test.
But anyway, so he sends out the big, all could be forgiven. We need to sit down and talk.
Well, Tony Khan responds, I would love to come on the show with you and Vince Russo, Coach. I've been a fan of both of yours for many years. Also, I think Vince is doing a tremendous job on JCW, which I enjoy very much.
Oh, good Lord. Like, he's watching that.
Hashtag AEW Dynamite, hashtag AEW Collision.
Well, yes, but he's got two 2-hour programs on per week, plus this Ring of Honor debacle, plus all of his other businesses, but he's got time to watch a literal wrestling show produced by clowns.
Yes, apparently Tony Khan does have that time.
Okay, and also the reason why I laughed was because I've told you, Joe Franklin, you.
Channel 9.
Being a New Yorker, Joe Franklin was a fucking New York City television institution for what, 40 years?
Maybe
with the
longer.
Joe Franklin show, late night, maybe longer. He was at, God damn it, it was either a pay-per-view in Madison Square Garden while Marlena was managing Goldust, or it was the Hall of Fame. Somehow we were in New York City and Joe Franklin was backstage in the green room and he came up to Marlena, who had obviously was Goldust's manager because it was Terry Runnels who was his wife at the time. And she had just started on television as Marlena like 6 months beforehand. And he had no earthly idea that she had been Alexandra York in WCW because he didn't watch fucking WCW. He goes up to Marlena, who in the wrestling world has existed for 6 months, and does the classic showbiz line. Oh, it's great to see you. Great. I've been a fan of yours for many years, many years.
Well, Tony's profession of fandom got 2 responses from Jonathan Coachman. Done and done. Thank you sincerely, Tony. Can't wait to make it happen and chop it up about the business we all love. And Vince Russo's response, Tony, it would be an honor. Seriously. When can we do this? We're live on Stadium at 11 a.m. on Thursdays.
I have tried to talk rats into blowjobs with less enthusiasm than what they are now just trying to get this son of a bitch on their podcast.
They think they got him hooked. And you know what the funny thing is? My first thought was, he thinks he's got them hooked. Remember, before anything, beyond being a billionaire's son, he's an internet troll. That's what he is. That's how he grew up. That's what he does. So my first thought was, oh, what a brilliant way for him to fuck with them. But I don't know.
But then now, do you have Vinny Rue's creative pitch that he sent out already?
Is that the same as this thing? Hold on. Let me, I have another tweet that was sent out by Vince Russo. Tony Khan, I got it confirmed, that's in caps, on a good word that you really do enjoy JCW. While that's cool and much, much appreciated, give me a follow back. Let's talk some creative. Let's do something that will blow the WWE into oblivion. That's in caps. That's all in caps. You've heard about me over the years.
Oh, we sure have.
You've heard about me over the years, but you've never had the opportunity to get to know me. And then all in caps, let's give them something to talk about. So obviously asking Tony for a follow.
He wants to take this ragtag band of fat, drunken dipshits that he books for fucking literal clowns and march them into combat like taking the goddamn National Guard of Slovakia in to fight the Chinese Red Army to blow the WWE into oblivion by co-promotion with AEW and Clown World. How
could this be real? How could that be real? Again, just that thought. No, but, like, you get more views reviewing French fries than they do for their, like, how could that thought process that if we merge these operations, that's it for WWE?
Well, no, see, that's the thing that does boggle the mind, and one would think that he's just delusional. But the thing is, if you think about it, he knows where he is in the world. He can't, Vince Russo cannot not know. He cannot be unaware of the fact that he has gone about as far down the totem pole in the wrestling business as you can go in the current position he's in, and nobody gives a fuck on a mainstream basis. If he was legitimately pitching Tony Khan a business deal, then after the initial contact on Twitter, he would have got one of these good word givers to give him Tony Khan's number. I've got it. Everybody's got it.
I've got it.
And he'd call, yeah, I know you do. And he'd call him on the fucking phone instead of, because he doesn't see this public groveling that he does to everybody as public groveling and begging and please throw me a lifeline and please get me back to my greatness or whatever. He just does it to get people talking. He thinks, oh, now the marks will think that the two creative geniuses of these two companies are going to come together, but he doesn't want to do it privately because he's probably figuring he ain't going to talk to me anyway. But he wants to get the people rumoring and buzzing that these two titans of the industry are going to collaborate. And again, the buzz is going to be faint and minute, except for the people laughing at the shameless desperation of it all, in all caps, that he just can't. He can't even play hard enough to get till the guy does their show, maybe, and then he has a conversation with him after they do the show. Hey, Tony, we could do a little talent trade or something. He's got to do the full court press.
You have to have a first date before you talk prenup.
My God, I was so shocked. This one time when I was 19 years old, this very demure looking young lady, I tried to steal a kiss and then kept stealing, and I was already past home and in the goddamn parking lot before we even got to the movie. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from? Because she didn't know how to play hard to get. And that's why Vince Russo is in the parking lot of the Showcase Cinemas with his legs spread up over the fucking armrests.
I was wondering how you were going to tie this back into that.
Well, see, it all works together.
Again, that's how I can't take this seriously. If you think you're going to actually blow WWE into oblivion, give me a break. That just means you think if you somehow got the reins of AEW, you think you could. Or it's just, like, it's the weirdest way to
you
get attention.
Being the royal you,
yeah.
Like this is the way Russo is thinking.
It just
seems. I was about to say, don't pin this on me personally.
It seems like a very weird way to get attention because unless Tony keeps responding in the positive, eventually, like, is the next one going to be, hey, Tony, hey, bro, we haven't heard back from you in a week.
Yeah. Hey, what did I just give you these ideas for free about coming on my show? That'll be the next communication. But I think the only thing that it keeps me from believing that it's 100% just him yanking people's chains for publicity is because, as we know, Vinny Roo is delusional enough to think that he was and could conceptually could still be valuable to the wrestling industry. And that's, he doesn't see, he sees this as a meeting of equals instead of a deliriously irrelevant fucking unemployed fucking former fucking kind of okay guy for a little while begging for another job 25 years later.
If they did speak, how long do you think it would take for Russo to pitch Tony Khan coming into JCW to be a heel?
A couple of hours, because Tony wouldn't shut up. Because that's the thing about when Tony Khan talks to experts, Tony Khan reaches out and talks to experts at a variety of times, and it generally follows the pattern of he then tells the experts what all of his great ideas are and doesn't listen to any of the experts tell him anything wrong with those ideas. But he loves to talk to experts because he loves to tell the experts how good his ideas are. So I think it would probably take Russo at least an hour and a half to get cranked up to broach the subject because Tony wouldn't take a breath till then.
Oh, I see something here. Ed Ferrara is asking if Carlos Silva wants to go on his podcast. It's one of these days where I'm thankful we have a podcast that doesn't rely on guests. Thank God. Jim.
Carlos Silva, there's another one. Just again, what is the state of him that he feels that he needs to come out as a businessman running the company in a snow white baseball cap when he's only 5'2" and 98 pounds and looks like Paul Schaefer's older brother? Can anybody not look official? If you can't look official, you shouldn't be allowed to play the part of an official on TV, even if really you're officially an official. right?
Do you think part of the problem is that wigs have gone completely out of fashion? I mean, obviously there are still some people out there. Ron Fuller's out there. Looks and sounds like Mr. Ed. He's out there with his wig. Looks like one of the Beatles. But you don't hear about too many people getting wigs anymore. Usually people embrace losing their hair and shave their head, or they wear a hat all the time. I know someone like in their 50s, they're always wearing their little baseball hat, always. You never see the top of their head or scalp or anything.
Okay, then here's the thing. If Carlos Silva is bald and is wearing a baseball cap to cover up his baldness, then don't goddamn come out on television. Find someone to be the authority figure that is younger and larger and more virile and has more oomph in his voice and can tell these people what to do as the representative of the ownership of the promotion, instead of some weaselly little fucking executive that's marking out because he gets to walk out to the ring and stand around because the company that he runs accidentally bought a wrestling promotion.
But I'm saying, if instead of the hat, what if he had a wig? What if he had like a full kind of, Elvis, or not Elvis, but, dark hair?
I don't care if they make him up to look like the werewolf of fucking London. He still looks like a little shit that doesn't have any power to tell anybody what to do. So just don't have him. Do not do this. In the words of Ole Anderson, just don't do this anymore.
All right, Jim, let's get a few questions before we get out of here. Obviously, more fun and hijinks on the experience.
No, we're going to have a ball
later this week. Jim, a question here sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group, sent in by Edward Whipkey. What were Jim's thoughts when Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez walked out of Jim Crockett Promotions without dropping the tag team titles?
I wanted to go to Dusty and say, see, we should have won them back. But I didn't, because I wasn't sure I had that much cachet in the industry yet. No, I was pissed because, again, I understood, I said this before, what Dusty was trying to do was make another heel team. We were already established. So, we had the belts, or the Rock and Roll had them, then we won them, then we lost them back to them. Then they lost them to Tully and Arn, right, for a period of time, and then got them back, and that's when they dropped them to Bull and Manny, I think. Or Bull and Manny, Bull and Rude. Nevertheless, you could... The previous lineage of the tag team title in Crockett in the NWA, it still meant something at that point, and this was something that had been used as a main event attraction, and especially if Flair or Dusty, whoever the NWA champion was on another town, the tag team title was in the main event, and it was a co-feature in the big shows. There had been Ivan and Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Tully and Arn. These are, at that time, elite level in the business, heel and babyface tag teams. And in along came Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez. Rude was just beginning to find his way. He hadn't got all the way there yet, but he was still only, a year and a half from leaving Memphis or whatever.
He came in from Dallas.
Okay, Memphis, then Dallas, and then came, but point being, he was still getting it together. He'd only been working for 3 years. Manny Dusty liked him, and he was a tremendous in-ring worker, better than he gets credit for. He was a fired up promo that he could go too long and make no fucking sense. But he'd been there a while. He wasn't anything special in that roster, in that environment with guys like the Horsemen, etc. And they were managed by Paul Jones, who had otherwise and still mostly was working with Jimmy Valiant. It was like, it was a wet fart from the previous 3 years of the tag team scene, right? And so they were going to try to build them, but then to top it off, they just get it. They get the belts and just get into the program with the Rock and Roll, and they fucking leave and take those beautiful old belts that Nikita Molkovich made with them. So Rude, you could tell, was destined for better things. And, I forgave that, but I was always mad at fucking Manny for leaving he should have put the belts back on the Midnight, and they'd still had their belts, and we would have done better at the houses. But that's water under the bridge.
Hey, somewhat related question. When were you told that Dusty was going to create a U.S. Tag Team Championship?
Oh, good Lord. I don't know. I know that he had told us when we were going to win the belts from the Rock and Roll in February '86. He told us the week before, probably at TV or one of the houses, that we were going to win them in Atlanta. That was going to be on the TBS special. And then he gave us, in those days, it was considered respect that you gave the guys, whether you thought there was going to be any argument about it or not, you gave the champions some advance notice that when they were going to drop the belts at a special big match or whatever. And even, obviously, it was a tradition for the NWA World title, but even the tag team belts and etc., you gave the guys, the champions, the respect of, okay, in Charlotte, on the 23rd, we want to switch this, whatever. But as far as, I think we probably just heard, the beginning of the United States Tag Team Championship tournament right here on TBS. That's when we probably found out about it. And since that was, again, it was a thing that was on TV, I probably figured out that we were winning when we got to the semifinals. And he probably told us after we won the semifinal match or whatever. But that's what we got a chance to work with Ronnie Garvin and Barry Windham, who were a tremendous and an underrated team because Barry was so good and Ronnie, in hindsight, was so good in his own way. But that segued into Ronnie and Jimmy Garvin when they reunited them. And then we carried it all the way to the Fantastics in '88, because that's what Dusty told us, especially when Stan came in April of '87. That was the month before the U.S. Tag title tournament started, I think. And it was a couple weeks before the Crockett Cup. The Midnight Express had a name he wanted to protect. So immediately when Stan joins the team, we went all the way to, what was it? The semifinals in the Crockett, or the finals that year. We had, at the Crockett Cup, we had the Road Warriors, which we won by disqualification. We went over the Garvins. I think that was a count out.
Oh, semifinals. You lost to Dusty and Nikita.
Semifinals, we lost to Dusty and Nikita, and then they went on and won it. But point being, he kept us strong there. And then once we got the U.S. tag title, that's where he told us, he said, guys, that's part of the belt of part of your ring outfit now. They go right along with the robes and everything, because he felt like if we had belts that I could crow about on the promos and that the guys could just wear, since it wasn't overdone, since everybody in the company didn't have a belt, they had world and U.S. tag team titles. They had a world singles title and a U.S. heavyweight title. Don't get me started on the Western Heritage title or whatever, but in a company with 40 guys, those were the belts, right? So the Midnight carried the tag team belts just as an extra little heat, for the U.S. belts as an extra little heat prop, where we could still claim dominance and not be in the world title picture. And then that's how we were able to make the Fantastics. When they came in, we had the belts for almost a year, and we did the fucking deal where we were about to have our 1 year celebration, and the fucking Fantastics fucked us and blah, blah, and we switched them back and forth with them. At that point, the belts meant something because we'd been defending them against the Road Warriors or the Rock and Roll Express or Garvin and Windham or whatever the fuck may be. And there you have it.
All right, good answer. On that topic, 89 or 88 into 89, if Dusty hadn't been fired, and, let's just say a bunch of things turned out differently. Dusty's not fired. Dennis doesn't walk out before the Loser Leaves Town match. And no George Scott.
Well, there wouldn't have been a Loser Leave Town match if Dusty hadn't been fired.
Oh, that's true. That was a Jim Crockett thing because he didn't like Randy Rose. My point was, if everything had worked out perfectly, how long do you think he would have stayed a babyface? Like, do you think it was just through the Paulie feud, or, you ended up having the run through, the New York Clash of Champions with the Dynamic Dudes? Would it have gone that long, or what do you think would have happened differently if everything had worked out differently?
Well, see, that's the thing, is that Paulie was the key to me being a babyface. And to a lesser extent, we could have done it with, even though Tully and Arn left, if J.J. Dillon had had another team, but he didn't stay that much longer. I needed a manager in the opposite corner to offset me, for me to be a babyface and serve a purpose. And as well, the reason why that the people liked the Midnight Express as babyfaces is because they had been such a great team as heels. You get other heels that the people dislike that are fresher heels, newer heels. The old, well, he may be a prick, but he's our prick. But those heels have to understand how to work with a babyface team that has to be heelish, has to work like... They liked the Midnight Express. Same reason when Lawler turned babyface. They liked him because he'd been a dominant heel, because he was going to give the heels a taste of their own medicine. In this aspect, any babyface that has been a top territory or company carrying fucking babyface, right? He's got to have had strong heels to combat him. But when you get a strong heel that you want to turn babyface, in a lot of cases, that guy needs to keep working like a heel to give the other heels a taste of their own medicine. The reason why he is over as a babyface is because he was such a dirty heel. Sometimes they'd bring the Sheik in if Abdullah the Butcher was a regular in the territory, or the Mongolian Stomper or whatever. They'd bring the only heel in the business worse than them into the territory once just to fucking give him his own medicine. So with the original Midnight, it worked because I had a foil on the other side, and Dennis and Randy were smart enough to the business to know that Bobby and Stan still had to do their teamwork, even sometimes behind the referee's back, or cheat or do whatever to stay over with the people. If it just suddenly Bobby Eaton started selling like Ricky Morton, then the people would have gone, well, what the fuck happened? So with them, they understood. But then, because that team was, and the program was broken up early, then we're working with the Samoan SWAT team, Samu and Fatu, and they have the Samoans match, but they're working with the Midnight like they're baby faces. And even though Paulie was in their corner, so I had something to do, the matches weren't good because they're working with the Midnight like baby faces, and they weren't going to sell, because they're big and physically dominant. They're only going to sell double teams and their own headbutts. So those were completely unproductive matches. And then Paul Jones and the Russian Assassins. God bless the Angel of Death, Dave Sheldon and Jack Victory. But the outfits were goofy, and Paul Jones was not. People didn't give a fuck about me and him. What was our issue? And so we were with the Dynamic Dudes. I saw a way to get out of the babyface thing. If the original program had run its course, we would have gone through the summertime with the original Midnight and Paulie, and we would have ended up with a 6-man tag where I beat Paulie like I did at the Great American Bash 89. Because Jim Ross and Kevin Sullivan, the people on the booking committee, realized that since Dennis and Randy had been broken up, even though we won that 6-man, I never really got even with Paulie. And so they didn't want to leave that stand. So as soon as George Scott was out of the way and the booking committee took over, they said, okay, we've got this, that we can get promos out of Cornette and Dangerously. And we've got to have Cornette come out on top because that kind of puts the button on their program. So that's how I ended up winning the rip your clothes off match at the Bash 89. But originally, as I said, if we'd have gone with the original Midnight through the summer of 89, then we would have, with immediately the next program we got into, we would have figured out some babyface team to turn heel on. And truthfully, if Dusty was still there and everything was still normal, it would have been the Steiner brothers, because the Midnight had great matches with the fucking Steiners. So that would have probably been what we would have done, because after the run with Dennis, Randy, and Paulie, long term, there was no reason for us to be baby faces. That was to capitalize on that moment and get back in the spotlight and do some memorable shit. And then we would have switched back. But since the boys were floundering, we had to, with no opponents, we had to wait until I figured out something with the dudes. And also, because by that point, Jim Hurd, who was a goddamn complete fucking befucking foon, wouldn't let us work with anybody but the dudes, because the Steiners and Doom were married and he loved the Skyscrapers, who were nothing but fucking trouble.
There were no heel tag teams for you guys to work with who would give you anything. I mean, the Freebirds,
no,
the Skyscrapers, Samoans.
Oh God, and the Freebirds. That was Jimmy Garvin. I was the same size as Jimmy Garvin. I was actually heavier than Jimmy Garvin, but he was on the juice, so he was crankier. But that's when we had to work with Spivey and Sid every one night just to get on the floor, just to get away from Sid. Sid's clubbing Bobby, and Bobby, the babyface, reaches up at the Giant and gouges Sid's eyes so Sid can be blind and Bobby can get away from him and get back to the corner. And Sid didn't sell it. He reached out and gouged Bobby's eyes. So Bobby didn't sell it, reached up and gouged his eyes. Sid didn't sell it, so Bobby just walked away from him. And then after the match, Bobby told Sid, he said, I gouged your eyes to get away. Well, I gouged yours too. You didn't sell it either. He said, because I gouged yours first.
So, all right. So we're talking about your babyface run, and that's...
Yes, but that's why we had to get out of that, because we needed to go back to be able to control the matches, because that's another thing is, I'm sorry, but the goddamn neither Spivey nor Sid was in a position to call a fucking match at that point. And like you said, the heels we were working with, the Russians, Victory and Sheldon, they just let Bobby and Stan call it because they knew they were in over their head. But the other guys, the heels, wanted to call the fucking matches with Bobby and Stan.
What about the militia, Jack Victory and Rip Morgan?
Oh, they were gorgeous too. They were beautiful to work with and nice guys. Jack Victory's one of the guys that helped me move from Dallas to Atlanta in 85. Helped me load up my fucking U-Haul trailer that I had.
You know, forgive me for not remembering, but did you guys ever work with the State Patrol?
On TV a time or two. I think we did. Yeah. Dwayne Bruce and Buddy Lee Parker.
Yeah. How did Buddy Lee Parker rise up to be like it was almost like he really was a drill sergeant in charge of WCW's training facility.
I never had any problems with the young fellow, and I'm not trying to slander him, but Jody Hamilton liked him because he was dedicated and worked hard and could do calisthenics, and he could do all the moves solidly. But that was a beginner's level type thing. If it'd been OVW, he'd have been the guy in charge of our amateur class. Just teach him how to do the moves. Don't hurt anybody, but you've never been in a money drawing position. So that's where you get off. But they had Buddy Lee Parker as like the figurehead trainer of the power plant because Jody liked him. And he did a lot of shit Jody didn't have to do then.
And Dale Veazey, he was in Mid-South.
Yeah, he was, do you know where his first gimmick? He was the Hunter. Do you remember the Hunter in Georgia and Tennessee for a very short period of time? Like 88-ish or so, maybe. No,
I don't.
before that.
Yeah, I don't.
Before that, probably mid-80s. Because the Hunter's valet was Bambi. Bambi, the girl wrestler. That's how she first started. She was the valet of the Hunter. One would have thought Bambi would have tried to stay away from the Hunter, but it didn't work that way. But then the rib was the Bambi ended up having a longer and more notable career than the Hunter.
Well, you got to join the State Patrol, and isn't that an honor? Well, Jim, let's get another question here. A few people sent me this article, so let me ask you about this. Here's one. This one from the official Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent by Brad Spellich. Becky Lynch says getting your WrestleMania opponents lavish gifts was a long-standing tradition. So we need to know, what did Yoko get Brett? Did he have to get Lex something as well?
What the
and
fuck?
Piper and Perfect for refereeing. Also, what did Ahmed, Jake, and Yoko get for Vader, Owen, and Bulldog? Also, did Jim ever get any gifts from any of his clients, WrestleMania's opponents? I have a quote here from an interview they did. Becky Lynch says the greatest gift she and Seth Rollins ever gotten was from AEW's Claudio Castagnoli, who gave Seth a La Marzocco coffee machine after their match together at WrestleMania 37. It was a gift after WrestleMania. Historically, when guys would have WrestleMania matches, they would give each other watches. Rolex.
Historically? What
Rolexes.
is she?
It's kind of a tradition that's fallen off the wayside unless you're Cody Rhodes. But instead of gifting Seth a Rolex, Claudio gifted him a La Marzocco coffee machine, which was the greatest gift, the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, joy, oh, bliss. So they can stink the house up with that foul-smelling fucking liquid all 24 hours a day. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Historically, maybe now. Historically, bullshit. My biggest WrestleMania payoff, I didn't make enough money to buy a Rolex to begin with. I think, didn't Shawn and Flair? Shawn did that for Flair or somebody, whatever the fuck. Every once in a while you'll hear so-and-so bought me this expensive gift or whatever. But as far as a tradition, I would say that 3/4 of the goddamn WrestleMania 10 card didn't make a payoff enough to buy a Rolex. Gross to begin with. And besides that, what the fuck? I just don't understand the concept of spending a coffee machine. Fine. Of course, I don't know how much this high-end La Greca machine fucking costs or whatever, but it's like one of those Keurigs. Okay. But fuck getting another one of the boys thousands of dollars worth of fucking presents for a match. They've lost their fucking minds. When a big payoff for WrestleMania was $100,000, like Goldust and Piper for WrestleMania 96 or Nash or those guys, you know what they left their opponent? Alone.
Apparently, this is a really expensive coffee machine. I'm trying to see.
$300? What the fuck is an expensive coffee machine?
Well, again, there must be different models. This one, La Marzocco KB90 3-group AV with scales espresso, $37,760.
What the fuck?
The La Marzocco Linne, I guess it would be, mini espresso. This is a mini red machine, $6,600. The La Marzocco Mini Espresso in black is $7,400.
What the flying fuck is the matter with anybody that would spend $7,000 to make a cup of coffee? And here's another goddamn thing. Just out there in the future, if anybody is ever thinking of getting me a gift and they spend $7,000 on a Sprite machine or a coffee machine or that, just give me the goddamn cash.
Here.
That is fucking ridiculous. I don't want my favorite kitchen implement is my deep fryer. And it's one of those fucking stainless steel jobs that I got out of the, what was it? What's the big kitchen place? Is it Hammaker Schlemmer? Or whatever the fuck. It was like $200. And I thought, well, I'll splurge. A $200 deep fryer. Holy shit. My mother would be ashamed. I had to wait till after she was gone to do something like that. And you pay for $7,000 for a cup of coffee? Fuck all of you.
I have a thread here on Reddit. Not necessarily the best place to look for good thoughts, but La Marzocco owners, was it worth it? And someone's talking about dreaming about owning one, asking people if it's worth it. Someone says, buy it as an investment for your small business. Here's someone who says, when you get
Who wants to walk into a goddamn boutique and smell stinky coffee?
When you get to that kind of money for a non-essential luxury item, there is no cost worth it ratio. If you drop the money in the middle of your room and set it to fire, would it change your life? If no, then congratulations, you can afford it, and you should go buy it.
But no, I could set $7,000 on fire and it would not change my life, but I would be mad at myself for the rest of my life for buying a coffee maker for or any kitchen appliance or goddamn, I didn't pay $7,000 for our stove. And it talks to me. It's quite insulting on most days, but every once in a while it's in a good mood.
I wonder how much parts and labor are on something like that.
Fuck, apparently you should get the fucking technician to come live with you for that amount of money. But no, as far as the whole, I can understand a hearty hand clasp and a thank you, brother, and etc. Or hey, let's go, I'll take you out to dinner. Or whatever, but spending thousands of dollars on gifts for your opponent for a wrestling match, I don't.
So there was never that for, like, again, WrestleMania we're talking about, there was no moment where Yokozuna said, hey, Jim, I have a little something special for you because I'm going to get a big payoff, or?
No. Again, this is when things like this explode and people start making too much money, these are when traditions like this starts taking place. My WrestleMania days were not an era where everybody was walking around going, wow, I can't believe we're making way too much fucking money.
Oh man, Ahmed Johnson just gave me a sofa.
Yeah.
A great WrestleMania.
I mean, he gave people numerous potatoes, but I don't know about any kind of furniture or, cooking implements.
All right.
No, every once in a while, like, didn't Sean get Flair a watch and the Dusty watch thing that Triple H got out of the pawn and gave to? These are documented incidents, but just the idea of a bunch of the boys just getting each other things because they worked with each other on a show, I've never heard of.
Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen, and we will get more of your questions next week. But with that, the drive-thru is closed. All right, pretty good.
Did the hamster get stuck in those strings?
It was pretty good, I think I just said, except for that last note, but there was no hamster.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play?
Of course, the hamster wheel will continue to roll on the Jim Cornette Experience in a few days, and next week, of course, back here on the drive-thru. Go through the archive, patreon.com/Cornette. For $5 a month to get access to the archive going back to 2013, patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. It'll come right up. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel.
It'll come right up. Just stand straight right up in front of you.
Check out that great George Livinitis artwork. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. What's going on, Jim?
Ring-worn stuff right now. Go there, click on Collectibles, and see what might be. If this is after April 4th, it might all be gone. Just jump in there and just get some things. And yes, and we will be back later on in a few days on the Experience, where I'm going to go find a cranky therapist that can uncrank me. Maybe spend about $500 a month or so on sessions with a therapist and be in a better mood by Friday.
We'll see how that works out. I think we're plugging Cornette's Collectibles once again at JimCornette.com. Of course, the drive-thru is brought to you by the law office of Stephen P. New, the law office, if I say it slow enough so that 2 words are there, of Stephen P. New.
Or the lost slaw of Stephen P. New. If you can find his coleslaw, call 877-50-STEVE to the lost slaw of Stephen P. New.
Get even with Stephen, newlawoffice.com. But with that, the drive-thru is closed. We'll be with you in a few days on the experience, and next week back here on the drive-thru. To all my fellow Jewish brothers and sisters out there, happy Passover. And with that, for Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!